I stood there in my wedding dress as champagne dripped down my face, cake crumbles scattered at my feet. Amy's words echoed through the reception hall. "This is what you get for acting like you're better." My mother, Margaret, wrapped her arms around Amy protectively. I remained silent, calculating. The wedding guests froze in horror. I thought about the college tuition deposit I controlled, the co-signed lease, and the trust fund documents hidden in my office. Everyone expected tears. Instead, I smiled slightly, knowing what would come at 7:30 tomorrow morning. The day had started so differently. 6 hours earlier, I woke up in my suite at the Fairmont Hotel, golden sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Sarah and Jennifer, my two best friends since high school, were already bustling around the room, laying out makeup brushes and adjusting the steamer for my dress. "You're glowing, Jordyn," Sarah said, handing me a cup of coffee prepared exactly how I liked it. 2 sugar splash of oat milk. These were the friends who knew me inside and out, who had held my hand through every heartbreak and celebrated every triumph over the past 15 years. Jennifer checked her phone and frowned slightly. "Amy just texted. She's running late." Of course she was. My younger sister had never been on time for anything in her entire 24 years of life. I pushed down the familiar twinge of irritation and focused on the positive. Today was about Michael and me, about the future we were building together. By the time Amy arrived 45 minutes late, the hairstylist was already working on my updo. She burst through the door without knocking, her energy immediately shifting the atmosphere in the room. Traffic was insane. She announced, though, I could smell the stale cigarette smoke clinging to her clothes and knew she'd probably stopped at the gas station to buy a pack. Her eyes were bloodshot with dark circles that even her concealer couldn't hide. "Hi, Amy," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "There's coffee on the side table. Your dress is hanging in the bathroom." She glanced at the dress with barely concealed disdain. "Right, the one you picked out for me." Sarah and Jennifer exchanged glances. They'd been through enough family gatherings to recognize the warning signs of an Amy spiral. The hairstylist, a cheerful woman named Rosa, tried to lighten the mood. "Your sister has such beautiful hair," Rosa said to Amy. "Must run in the family." Amy's laugh was sharp. "Oh, Jordyn got all the good genes. Perfect hair, perfect skin, perfect life." She slumped into a chair and started scrolling through her phone. "Must be nice." I focused on my breathing, a technique my therapist had taught me. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Today was not the day to engage with Amy's bitterness. As Rosa worked on my hair, weaving in the delicate pearl pins that had belonged to our grandmother Dorothy, Amy's mood seemed to darken with each passing minute. She kept glancing up from her phone, her jaw tightening, whenever Sarah or Jennifer laughed at something. "God, could you all keep it down?" Amy snapped. "Some of us have headaches." "Maybe you should eat something," Jennifer suggested gently. "There are pastries from that French bakery you like." "I don't need you mothering me," Amy shot back. "I get enough of that from Perfect Jordyn." I met her eyes in the mirror. "Amy, what's really going on? You seem upset." "Oh, now you care. You've been too busy planning your dream wedding to notice anything else happening in this family." Rosa's hands stilled in my hair. The uncomfortable silence stretched until she cleared her throat and resumed working. I noticed her glance at Amy with a strange expression, like she was trying to place her. "Actually," Rosa said slowly, "I think I might have seen you last week. Do you ever go to that coffee shop on Maple Street? The one next to the check-cashing place?" Amy's face flushed. "No, you must be thinking of someone else." But Rosa persisted, friendly and oblivious to the tension. "I could have sworn it was you. You were with a tall guy, lots of tattoos. You seemed upset about something, and I remember thinking I should have offered to help." "I said it wasn't me," Amy snapped, her voice rising. "God, why does everyone have to be in my business?" She stood abruptly and stormed toward the bathroom, slamming the door behind her. Through the thin walls, we could hear her on the phone, her voice low and urgent. Sarah touched my shoulder gently. "You okay?" I nodded, though my stomach was starting to churn with familiar dread. Amy's moods had been getting worse over the past few months, but I'd been so focused on wedding planning that I'd pushed my concerns aside. When it came time to pay Rosa for her services, I pulled out my credit card from my purse. The suite had grown quiet, Jennifer helping me into my robe while Sarah organized the jewelry. I thought Amy was still in the bathroom, but as I entered my PIN into Rosa's mobile card reader, I caught a flash of movement in the mirror. Amy stood behind me, her phone held at an angle that gave her a clear view of the screen. Our eyes met in the reflection, and she quickly lowered her phone, but not before I saw her thumb moving across the screen as if she were typing. "What are you doing?" I asked, turning to face her. "Nothing, just checking the time." She held up her phone, showing the lock screen. "We should get moving soon, right? Don't want to be late for the family photos." But as she turned away, I saw her phone light up with a message notification. The sender's name was Derek, and though I only caught a glimpse, the preview showed, "Got it. Tonight we move forward." My blood ran cold. Derek was a name I'd heard Amy mention a few times, always evasively. A friend from work she'd said, though, Amy had been unemployed for months. I wanted to confront her right then, but Sarah was holding up my wedding dress, and Jennifer was talking about the schedule, and Rosa was packing up her supplies with a concerned look on her face. I forced myself to smile and step into the dress, all while my mind raced. What had Amy photographed? What were they planning to move forward with tonight? And why did I have the sinking feeling that my wedding day was about to become something far different than I'd imagined? As Sarah zipped up the back of my dress, I made a mental note to check my credit card activity later. But for now, I had to focus. I had family photos to take a ceremony to get through, and a growing certainty that my sister was planning something that would test every ounce of composure I possessed. The morning that had started with such promise was already beginning to crack at the edges, like a photograph left too long in the sun. And somehow I knew this was only the beginning. The gardens at Riverside Manor were everything I dreamed of for our wedding photos. Centuries-old oak trees created natural archways draped with Spanish moss, while carefully manicured rose bushes added splashes of cream and blush pink against the emerald grass. The photographer Marcus was already setting up his equipment when our wedding party arrived. "Absolutely stunning," Marcus said, his camera clicking as he took test shots. "The light is perfect right now. Let's start with the immediate family." My mother Margaret hurried over her lavender mother of the bride dress swishing around her ankles. She'd lost weight for the wedding, gotten her hair professionally colored, and looked younger than her 58 years. But the tight smile on her face told me she was already in management mode. "Amy, sweetie, come stand next to your sister." Margaret called out, her voice carrying that false brightness she used when trying to pretend everything was fine. Amy dragged her feet like a sullen teenager, positioning herself as far from me as possible while still being in the frame. Marcus noticed the distance immediately. "Ladies, let's close that gap a bit. This is a celebration of family." He gestured for Amy to move closer. "I'm fine where I am," Amy muttered. Margaret's smile became even more strained. "Amy, please, for your sister." "Everything's always for Jordyn, isn't it?" Amy said under her breath, but she moved a half step closer. Marcus began shooting his assistant, holding a reflector to soften the shadows. Through it all, Amy's expression remained stony, her smile never reaching her eyes. "Beautiful, now let's have Mom in the middle arms around both daughters," Marcus directed. As Margaret positioned herself between us, she whispered in that way mothers do when they're trying to fix things without anyone noticing. "Amy, honey, what's wrong? This is your sister's big day." "Nothing's wrong," Amy said through gritted teeth. "I'm smiling, aren't I?" Just then, a black Mercedes pulled up to the venue's side entrance. My father Thomas stepped out, and my stomach immediately knotted. He wasn't alone. His second wife, Bethany, emerged from the passenger side, even though I'd specifically asked him to come alone for the family photos. Bethany was 15 years younger than my mother, with bottle blonde hair and a dress that seemed more appropriate for a cocktail party than an afternoon wedding. She'd been Dad's secretary before becoming his wife, a cliché that still made Margaret's jaw clench 5 years after the divorce. "Thomas," Margaret said, her voice icy. "I see you brought company." "Bethany's family now." Dad said, though he had the grace to look uncomfortable. "She'll just wait by the car during the photos." "How considerate," Margaret replied, each word dripping with sarcasm. Marcus, sensing the tension, tried to maintain his professional cheerfulness. "Let's get a few shots with Dad and the girls. Shall we?" As we repositioned, Amy suddenly moved closer to me, but not out of affection. Her lips barely moved as she whispered, "Must be nice having Daddy pay for your perfect wedding while the rest of us struggle." "Dad offered to help with your college expenses, too," I whispered back, trying to keep my expression pleasant for the camera. "Right, with conditions, with judgment, with constant reminders of what a disappointment I am compared to his perfect firstborn." "Amy, that's not—" "Smile, Jordyn," she hissed. "Wouldn't want to ruin your precious photos." Marcus continued clicking away, capturing what probably looked like tender, sisterly moments, but were actually veiled threats and barely contained resentment. When he asked us to link arms, Amy gripped mine hard enough to leave marks. "Oh, this is lovely." My cousin Emma appeared with her husband Nathan, their twin boys racing ahead of them toward the garden fountain. Emma was Margaret's niece, a successful real estate agent who had a knack for being in the right place at the right time to gather family gossip. "Emma," Margaret called out, grateful for the distraction. "Come, we're doing extended family next." As the group reorganized, Emma sidled up to me. "Beautiful venue, Jordyn, though I have to say I was surprised to see Amy here. After what happened last week, I thought—" My attention sharpened. "What happened last week?" Emma glanced around, then lowered her voice. "You didn't know Nathan and I saw her at the Rivers Casino. It was past midnight on a Tuesday, and she was at the high-stakes poker table. Nathan wanted to say hello, but she seemed intense. There was a man with her lots of tattoos, and they were arguing about money." "Derek," I said without thinking. "You know him?" "No, I just heard the name." Emma's expression grew concerned. "Jordyn, I don't want to worry you on your wedding day, but she didn't look good. The dealer seemed to know her by name and not in a friendly way. When she saw us, she practically ran out of there." Before I could respond, Marcus called for places. The extended family photo required multiple arrangements, with Margaret insisting on specific positioning that put Amy front and center. "She looks too far to the side," Margaret fussed. "Amy should be more prominent. She's immediate family." "Mom, it's fine where she is," I said, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. "No, it's not fine. People will think we're excluding her." Margaret physically moved Amy closer to the center, right next to me. "There, that's better. Families should be together." Thomas cleared his throat. "Speaking of family, shouldn't Bethany be in some of these shots?" The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Margaret's smile became positively glacial. "I think immediate and extended family is quite sufficient," she said. "Though, if you'd like to arrange your own photo session with your new family, I'm sure Marcus has availability next week." "There's no need for that tone, Margaret." "What tone? I'm simply being practical. We wouldn't want to confuse future generations looking at these photos, wondering who belongs and who's just temporary." Amy suddenly laughed a harsh sound that made everyone turn. "God, you're all such hypocrites, standing here pretending to be this perfect family when we can barely stand to be in the same room together." "Amy," Margaret gasped, "that's enough." "Is it? We're all thinking it. Dad's here with his midlife crisis wife, Mom's pretending she's not bitter about it, and Jordyn's playing princess while the rest of us deal with real problems." "What real problems?" I asked, unable to stop myself. "Amy, if something's wrong, talk to me." She whirled on me, eyes flashing. "Oh, now you want to talk. Where were you last month when I needed help?" "Oh, right, cake tasting. Where were you when I tried to call you last week dress fittings? Everything's always about you, Jordyn. Your college graduation, your engagement, your wedding. When is it ever about anyone else?" "That's not fair," I said, my voice shaking. "I've always been there for you." Have you been there when it's convenient, when it makes you look like the good sister?" Marcus and his assistant stood frozen, cameras lowered. The extended family members shifted uncomfortably, some pretending to check their phones, while others watched with barely concealed fascination. This was prime family drama, the kind that would be dissected at holiday dinners for years to come. Margaret stepped between us, her hands fluttering like nervous birds. "Girls, please. Not here. Not now. We can discuss this later privately." "There is no later with Jordyn." Amy spat. "After today, she'll be too busy with her perfect husband in her perfect house, living her perfect life to remember she has a sister." "Amy, you're being dramatic," Thomas said, finally speaking up. "Your sister has included you in everything." "Included me?" Amy's laugh was bitter. Like I'm some charity case, some obligation to check off her list. "You're twisting everything," I said, anger finally breaking through my careful composure. "I asked you to be my maid of honor. You said no. I asked you to help plan. You were too busy. Every time I've reached out, you've pushed me away, and now you want to blame me for the distance between us? I said no to being maid of honor because I knew you only asked out of obligation, because Mom would have thrown a fit if you didn't." "That's not true. Isn't it? Tell me one time in the last year you've called me just to talk, not about wedding stuff, not about family obligations, just to see how I was doing." I opened my mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Emma chose that moment to intervene. "You know, stress does funny things to people. Wedding planning is hard on everyone. Amy, I'm sure Jordyn didn't mean to neglect." "Don't," Amy cut her off. "Don't make excuses for her. You all do that. Poor Jordyn, so busy, so important, so stressed. What about my stress? What about my life?" "What stress?" I asked, genuinely confused now. "Amy, you live at home. Mom and Dad pay your bills. You dropped out of college, quit every job after a few weeks. What exactly is so stressful about your life?" The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd gone too far. Amy's face went pale, then flushed deep red. "You have no idea," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "No idea what I'm dealing with, what I've sacrificed. But you'll find out. Tonight you'll all find out exactly what kind of person perfect Jordyn really is." She turned and stalked away, leaving the rest of us in stunned silence. Margaret immediately went after her, calling her name, while Thomas rubbed his temples like he was fighting a headache. Marcus cleared his throat delicately. "Perhaps we should take a short break. The light will still be good in 15 minutes. As the group dispersed, Emma caught my arm. "Jordyn, I didn't want to say this in front of everyone, but when Nathan and I saw Amy at the casino, she wasn't just gambling. She was signing something papers that Derek guy had. It looked official, like loan documents or something." My blood ran cold. Loan documents. I could be wrong, but Nathan used to work in finance, and he said it looked like she was either borrowing money or using something as collateral. "Using what as collateral? She doesn't own anything." Emma bit her lip. "That's what worried us. Jordyn, you don't think she wouldn't use someone else's information, would she?" I thought about Amy photographing my credit card, about Derek's message, about Amy's words. "Tonight you'll all find out." "I need to make a call," I said, already reaching for my phone. "But the photos can wait 5 minutes." I hurried to a quiet corner of the garden and dialed my credit card company. As I navigated through the automated system, I watched my family scattered across the lawn. Margaret had caught up to Amy by the fountain and was gesturing animatedly while Amy stood with her arms crossed. Thomas was escorting Bethany back to the car, probably relieved to have an excuse to leave the drama. Emma was corralling her twins while shooting worried glances my way. When I finally reached a representative and asked about recent activity on my card, my worst fears were confirmed. 3 large cash advances had been attempted in the last hour, all declined because they exceeded my available credit. "Ma'am, we've put a temporary freeze on your card due to suspicious activity," the representative said. "Would you like us to issue a new card?" "Yes," I said, my mind reeling. "And please flag my account for potential fraud." As I ended the call, I saw Amy watching me from across the garden. When our eyes met, she smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had already decided to burn everything down and was just waiting for the match to light. Marcus called out that he was ready to resume photos. I plastered on my bride smile and walked back to the group, all while calculating how much damage my sister could do in the hours between now and my reception. The answer I would soon learn was more than I could have imagined. 90 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, I found myself standing in the doorway of the bridal suite, frozen in disbelief. Amy had her back to me, hunched over my purse, which she dumped onto the velvet ottoman. My wallet with splayed open credit cards scattered like playing cards across the fabric. "What are you doing?" Amy spun around, clutching her phone. For a split second, I saw panic flash across her face before it hardened into defiance. "Looking for aspirin." She said, though we both knew my emergency kit was in the side pocket, not the main compartment where she'd been rifling. With my wallet open, with my cards out, she shrugged, that maddening gesture she'd perfected in adolescence. Things fell out when I was searching. God, Jordyn paranoid much. I stepped into the room, closing the door behind me. Sarah and Jennifer were handling last-minute details with the coordinator, and I was grateful for the privacy. This confrontation had been building all day, maybe longer. "I know about the cash advances," I said quietly. 3 attempts in the last hour, all declined. Amy's face went through a series of expressions like she was trying on masks to see which one fit. Surprise, confusion, innocence, before finally settling on anger. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Stop lying to me, Amy. I saw you photographing my credit card this morning. I know Derek texted you about moving forward with something tonight, and now you're going through my purse like a common thief." "How dare you?" She stood up, kicking my purse in the process. Lipstick and receipts scattered across the floor. "I'm your sister, not some criminal." "Then explain what's going on. Explain why Emma saw you at the Rivers Casino signing papers with Derek. Explain why you need $30,000 from someone you supposedly hate." The color drained from Amy's face. She sank onto the ottoman, suddenly looking younger than her 24 years. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Then help me understand." For a moment, I thought she might actually tell me the truth. Her shoulders sagged and tears gathered in her eyes. But then her phone buzzed with an incoming text, and I watched her transformation in real time. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by something harder, meaner. "Fine. You want the truth? I'm drowning Jordyn. Drowning in debt that started as a few poker games to blow off steam and turned into something I can't control. Derek said he'd help, said he knew ways to get quick cash, but everything has interest. Everything has consequences. How much do you owe?" $30,000 to the wrong people. The kind of people who don't accept payment plans or excuses. She laughed bitterly. "But you wouldn't understand that, would you, perfect Jordyn with her perfect credit score and her perfect financial planning?" "So your solution was to steal from me?" "Borrow," she snapped. "I was going to pay you back. With what money? You don't have a job. You dropped out of college. You live with Mom and—" I stopped, a horrible realization dawning. "Oh my God, you didn't drop out, did you? You were kicked out. For what? Gambling, stealing?" Amy's silence was answer enough. "How long has Mom known?" "She doesn't. I've been pretending to go to classes, taking the tuition money she gives me and trying to dig myself out of this hole. But it just keeps getting deeper." I sat down on the bed, my wedding dress pooling around me like a white cloud. The fairy tale was crumbling, and we hadn't even made it to the ceremony. "We can figure this out," I said finally. "After the wedding, we'll sit down with Mom and Dad, maybe get you into a program." Amy's laugh was sharp enough to cut. "A program? You think this is some after-school special where I go to rehab and everything's magically fixed? These people don't wait for family interventions, Jordyn. They want their money now." "Then we'll go to the police." "With what proof that I borrowed money from criminals? They'll arrest me too." She stood up, pacing the small room like a caged animal. "Besides, going to the police would require you to care more about my life than your reputation. Imagine the scandal." Bride's sister arrested at wedding for illegal gambling debts. That would really put a damper on your perfect day. That's not fair. Isn't it you've spent $300,000 on this wedding? $300,000 Jordyn. Do you know what I could do with even a fraction of that? That's not... Michael's family contributed and we saved for years. Must be nice to have someone to save with, someone whose family can just contribute 6 figures like it's nothing. Amy's voice was rising now, years of resentment pouring out. Meanwhile, I'm sleeping in my childhood bedroom, afraid to answer my phone because it might be someone threatening to break my legs. Why didn't you come to me sooner before it got this bad? When during your engagement party where you announced your promotion, at your bridal shower where everyone gave you Le Creuset cookware that costs more than my car payment, at your bachelorette weekend in Napa where you spent more on wine than I owe in student loans, each word was an accusation, each example a knife twisted deeper. I would have helped, I insisted. No, you would have judged. You would have lectured me about responsibility and making better choices, all while flashing that ring that costs more than Mom's annual salary. I looked down at my engagement ring, a 2-carat cushion cut that Michael had saved for months to buy. It had never occurred to me how it might look to Amy struggling with debt while I planned a lavish wedding. So what's your plan? I asked. Steal my identity, ruin my credit, destroy my life because yours is a mess. Amy's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it and her expression hardened. You know what? Maybe I will. Maybe it's time you understood what it feels like to have everything fall apart, to have creditors calling to be afraid to feel like you're drowning while everyone around you is breathing just fine. Amy, you're talking crazy. This is illegal. You could go to jail. I'm already in jail, she screamed. A jail made of bad decisions and worse options. At least in actual jail, I'd get 3 meals a day and wouldn't have to watch my perfect sister live the life I'll never have. The door burst open. Margaret stood there, taking in the scene, me on the bed looking stricken, Amy red-faced and shaking my belongings scattered across the floor. What is going on here? She didn't wait for an answer, immediately going to Amy. Sweetheart, what's wrong? What has Jordyn done? What have I done? I couldn't believe it. Mom, she was stealing from my purse. She's been trying to use my credit cards without permission. Margaret's arm around Amy tightened protectively. There must be a misunderstanding. Amy would never... She just admitted it. I stood up, wedding dress rustling. She owes $30,000 to dangerous people. She's been lying about college, stealing your tuition money. Stop it, Margaret said sharply. Just stop. Your sister is clearly having a hard time, and instead of helping, you're making accusations. On your wedding day, Jordyn. How could you... I stared at them, mother and daughter united against me, a tableau I'd seen countless times throughout my childhood. Amy could do no wrong in Margaret's eyes. Every failure was someone else's fault, every consequence too harsh for her baby girl. She photographed my credit card. She attempted fraud. These aren't accusations, Mom, they're facts. If Amy needed money, she would have asked. She wouldn't steal. Margaret's voice was firm, but I saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes. Tell her, sweetheart. Tell Jordyn this is all a misunderstanding. Amy buried her face in Margaret's shoulder, shoulders shaking with what looked like sobs, but produced no tears. I'm so sorry, she mumbled. I saw Jordyn's cards and thought maybe I could borrow some money for textbooks. I was going to ask, but she started yelling at me, accusing me of terrible things. Textbooks. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. She hasn't been to class in months, Mom. She was kicked out of college. That's a lie. Amy pulled away from Margaret, eyes flashing. See, this is what she does. She twists everything makes me look bad so she looks better by comparison. Margaret looked between us, and I could see her making the choice she always made, the one that required the least painful truth. Jordyn, it's your wedding day. Can't you just let this go? Whatever happened, I'm sure Amy didn't mean any harm. She admitted to trying to steal $30,000 from me. I admitted to being in debt, Amy corrected. I never said I tried to steal anything. Jordyn's so paranoid she probably saw me looking for aspirin and invented this whole story. It was masterful, really. The way she could twist reality, make me look like the unreasonable one. She'd had years of practice, and Margaret had been her willing audience for every performance. "Check her phone," I said desperately. "Check the texts from Derek. Check the photos she took of my credit card." Amy clutched her phone to her chest. "This is private property. She has no right—" "I'm trying to protect myself from fraud." "Girls, please." Margaret stepped between us. "This is getting out of hand. Jordyn, you need to finish getting ready. Amy, come with me. We'll give your sister some space to calm down." "I don't need to calm down. I need you to acknowledge what's happening here. Amy is in serious trouble, and enabling her is only making it worse." Margaret's face hardened. "I've had enough of your accusations. Your sister has struggles, yes, but that doesn't make her a criminal. You've always been jealous of the attention she needs, always resentful that everything isn't about you. Jealous." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, I'm trying to help her. By humiliating her, by accusing her of theft on what should be a happy day, that's not help, Jordyn. That's cruelty." Amy pecked out from behind Margaret, and I swear I saw her smirk. She'd won this round, turned our mother against me with a few tears and well-placed lies. "You know what?" I said, suddenly exhausted. "Fine, take her side. Believe her lies. But when the bills come due, when the police show up, when the people she owes money to come collecting, don't say, 'I didn't warn you.'" "So dramatic," Amy muttered. "Always has to be the victim." I looked at her. Really looked at her. Beneath the defiance and manipulation, I saw something else. Fear. Real bone-deep terror that she was trying to hide behind bravado and blame. "Amy," I said quietly, "it's not too late. We can still fix this. But you have to be honest. You have to stop the games and tell us what's really going on." For a heartbeat, I thought I'd reached her. Her mask slipped, and the scared little girl I used to protect from nightmares peeked through. Then her phone rang. Derek's name flashed on the screen. She answered it, turning away from us. "Yeah, no, it didn't work. She knows." A pause. "Tonight, at the reception. Plan B." My blood ran cold. "What's Plan B?" Amy ended the call and looked at me with eyes that held no warmth, no recognition of sisterhood or shared history. "You'll find out," she said. "Everyone will know exactly what kind of person you are by the end of the night. The bride who had everything and wouldn't share a penny to save her sister's life." "Amy," Margaret gasped, finally hearing the venom in her daughter's voice. But Amy was already heading for the door. "I need to get ready. Wouldn't want to ruin Jordyn's perfect pictures by looking stressed." She paused in the doorway, looking back at me. "Enjoy your ceremony, sister. It'll be the last thing you enjoy for a long time." She left, and Margaret hurried after her, leaving me alone in a room that suddenly felt too quiet. My purse contents were still scattered on the floor, credit cards gleaming like accusations in the afternoon light. I bent down to gather them, hands shaking as I checked each one. All there, but it didn't matter. Amy had what she needed. Photos, numbers, security codes she'd probably memorized, while I trustingly left my purse around the house we'd grown up in. Sarah appeared in the doorway, radiant in her bridesmaid dress. "Jordyn, the photographer wants to know if—" "Oh, honey, what's wrong?" I stood up, clutching my violated wallet, and made a decision. "I need you to do something for me. Quietly, without anyone knowing." "Anything." "Call Patricia Chen. She's at table 12. Tell her I need to see her privately before the ceremony." "The lawyer, Jordyn, what's going on?" I looked at my reflection in the mirror. Bride hair, bride makeup, bride dress. But underneath it all, I was just a woman who'd finally realized that love without boundaries wasn't love at all. It was enabling, and I was done being an enabler. "I'm protecting myself," I said, "and possibly saving my sister from herself, even if she hates me for it." Sarah squeezed my hand. "Whatever you need. Patricia will be here in 5 minutes." As she left to find my attorney friend, I began putting my credit cards back in my wallet, each one a reminder of how much I had to lose and how far Amy was willing to go to take it from me. The countdown to my ceremony continued, but I was no longer counting minutes until I said, "I do." I was counting steps in a chess game where my opponent had already shown she was willing to flip the board rather than lose. 83 minutes until I walked down the aisle. More than enough time to protect what was mine and plan for whatever plan B Amy had in store. The bride was done being a victim. It was time to be strategic. The string quartet began the opening notes of Canon in D, and 800 guests rose to their feet. Through the sheer curtain separating me from the main ceremony space, I could see Michael waiting at the altar, his face glowing with anticipation. This should have been the happiest moment of my life. Instead, I stood frozen Patricia Chen's whispered legal advice still echoing in my ears. "Jordyn, breathe," Sarah murmured beside me, adjusting my veil one final time. "You've done what you can. Now it's time to marry the man you love." She was right. In the past 45 minutes, I'd filed fraud alerts with all 3 credit bureaus, initiated a trace on the attempted cash advances, and gave Patricia power of attorney to act on my behalf if anything happened during the reception. It was the best I could do without missing my own wedding. "Ready, princess?" My father appeared at my elbow, looking distinguished in his tuxedo despite the stress lines around his eyes. "As ready as I'll ever be." The curtains parted, revealing the transformed ballroom. Thousands of white roses lined the aisle, their perfume mixing with the soft glow of candlelight. Every detail I'd spent months planning was perfect, except for Amy. She stood with the other bridesmaids, swaying slightly. Jennifer had texted me that Amy had been drinking champagne in the bridal suite for her nerves. Her smile was too bright, her eyes too glassy, and she was holding her phone in her bouquet hand, partially hidden by the peonies. As Dad and I began our walk, I kept my eyes fixed on Michael. His smile was my anchor, reminding me why we were here. His parents, Robert and Helen, beamed from the front row. His sister Michelle dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. This was my real family, I told myself, the one I was choosing. We were halfway down the aisle when I heard the unmistakable sound of a phone camera clicking. Amy was recording her phone, now barely concealed, as she captured every step I took. My smile never wavered, but I made a mental note. Whatever plan B was, she was documenting it. "Who gives this woman to be married?" Reverend Williams asked when we reached the altar. "Her mother and I do." Dad said, his voice thick with emotion. He kissed my cheek, whispered, "I'm proud of you, sweetheart," and took his seat next to Bethany. Margaret sat in the front row across the aisle, and I noticed she kept glancing back at Amy with worried eyes. Good. Maybe she was finally seeing what I'd been trying to tell her. Michael took my hands, his touch grounding me in the present moment. "You look absolutely stunning," he whispered. "Dearly beloved." Reverend Williams began, his voice carrying across the hushed room. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Jordyn Marie Anderson and Michael James Fletcher." As he spoke about love and commitment, I snuck glances at Amy. She was typing on her phone now, not even pretending to pay attention to the ceremony. Jennifer tried to nudge her, but Amy just shifted away. "Marriage is a sacred bond." Reverend Williams continued, "built on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. It requires us to put another's needs alongside our own, to choose love even when it's difficult to stand together against whatever storms may come." I heard a small snort from the bridesmaid section. Amy had her phone raised again, and I realized with dawning horror that she was live streaming. I could see the Instagram interface, the hearts floating up the screen as viewers reacted in real time. Michael squeezed my hands, drawing my attention back to him. His brown eyes were full of understanding. He'd noticed too, but he was silently telling me to stay focused on us. "Michael and Jordyn have written their own vows," Reverend Williams announced. "Michael, would you like to begin?" Michael pulled a folded paper from his pocket, his hands steady despite the emotion in his voice. Jordyn, from the moment you walked into that coffee shop 5 years ago, arguing on the phone with a client about contract terms, I knew you were someone special. Your passion, your integrity, your fierce loyalty to the people you love all drew me in. I smiled through tears remembering that day. I'd been so embarrassed when I realized how loud I'd been talking, but Michael had just grinned and offered to buy me a coffee for the entertainment. You've shown me what it means to love without reservation, to trust completely, and to build a life based on shared values and dreams. I promise to support your ambitions, to celebrate your victories, to comfort you in defeats, and to stand by your side no matter what challenges we face. I choose you today and every day for the rest of our lives. The guests murmured appreciatively, and I saw several people wiping their eyes. Amy, however, was narrating into her phone in a stage whisper. Beautiful vows. Wonder if he knows what his bride did this morning. Stay tuned, folks. It's about to get interesting. Margaret half rose from her seat, clearly torn between stopping Amy and not causing a scene. She settled for a furious glare that Amy completely ignored. Jordyn, Reverend Williams prompted gently, "Your vows." I took a breath, pushing away thoughts of fraud alerts and live streams. This was my moment with Michael, and I wouldn't let Amy steal it. Michael. I began, my voice stronger than I expected. You came into my life when I thought I had everything figured out. I had my career path, my 5-year plan, my carefully controlled world. Then you smiled at me over a coffee cup and asked if I always planned out my arguments with such precision, and suddenly all my plans didn't matter anymore. He grinned at the memory, and I felt my tension ease slightly. You've taught me that love isn't about control or perfection. It's about choosing to be vulnerable with another person, trusting them with your whole heart, and knowing they'll protect it as fiercely as their own. You've celebrated my strengths and loved me through my weaknesses. You've shown me that the best things in life can't be planned, only embraced. I paused, looking directly at him, making sure he understood my next words were for him alone. Today, in front of our family and friends, I promise to love you with the same generosity and grace you've shown me. I promise to support your dreams, to be your partner in all things, and to face whatever comes with courage, knowing we face it together. I choose you, Michael, today and always. Beautiful, Reverend Williams said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Now the rings. Michael's nephew Tommy stepped forward with the ring pillow adorable in his miniature tuxedo. As Michael slipped the platinum band onto my finger, I noticed Amy had moved. She was angling for a better shot, practically stepping out of the bridesmaid line. With this ring, Michael said, "I thee wed." My hands trembled slightly as I placed his ring, but my voice was steady. With this ring, I thee wed. Now for the unity candle, Reverend Williams announced. This was the part where our mothers were supposed to light the taper candles we'd use to light the unity candle together. Margaret stood her movements graceful despite the tension radiating from her. Helen rose from the other side, and they met us at the small table set up beside the altar. As they lit their candles, I heard Amy's voice again, louder now. Watch my selfish sister ignore family crisis for her princess moment. You have no idea what she's really like. Gasps rippled through the congregation. Michael's hand found mine, squeezing gently. I kept my eyes on the candles, on the flames that Margaret and Helen held out to us. The joining of two flames into one represents the joining of two lives, two families, two futures. Reverend Williams said, his voice carrying a note of determination to continue despite the disruption. Michael and I each took our taper candles, touching them to our mother's flames, then moving together to light the unity candle. The flame caught burning bright and steady. Perfect. I whispered not about the candle, but about us, about our ability to stay focused on each other despite the chaos around us. We returned to our positions, and Reverend Williams raised his voice slightly. What God has joined together, let no one separate. No one. Amy laughed, the sound carrying clearly across the room. That's rich. By the power vested in me by the state of California, Reverend Williams continued firmly, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Michael, you may kiss your bride. Michael cupped my face gently, his thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. "I love you, Mrs. Fletcher," he whispered. "I love you too," I managed before his lips met mine. The kiss was perfect, tender, passionate, a promise and a claim all at once. The guests erupted in applause, and for a moment I forgot about everything else. There was only Michael and me and the life we were beginning together. Then the music swelled the recessional beginning, and we turned to face our guests as husband and wife. That's when I saw Amy's phone held high, her voice carrying over the music. "And there goes the bride, folks. Let's see how long the happiness lasts when she finds out what's waiting for her at the reception. Like and subscribe if you want to see a wedding reception nobody will forget." Margaret finally moved, reaching for Amy's arm, but Amy danced away, following us down the aisle while still filming. The guests looked confused, some amused, others concerned. I saw Patricia Chen in her seat phone already out, probably screenshotting Amy's live stream for evidence. Michael and I maintained our smiles, waving to guests, playing the part of happy newlyweds, even as Amy's commentary followed us. "Look at that dress, $50,000, while her sister can't afford groceries. But karma's coming, friends. Stay tuned for the reception. You won't want to miss what happens when the cake comes out." We made it to the curtained exit, and suddenly we were in the relative quiet of the hallway. Sarah and Jennifer rushed to us both, talking at once. "I'm so sorry we tried to get her phone." "She's completely drunk, Jordyn. We should call security." "Stop," I said, holding up my hand. "It's done. We're married. That's what matters." Michael pulled me against him, and I felt his chest rumble with laughter. Well, that was certainly memorable. Despite everything, I found myself laughing too. Not quite the ceremony I planned. "Mrs. Fletcher," he said, tilting my chin up, "I would marry you in a hurricane with your sister live streaming and a mariachi band playing death metal if it meant I got to call you my wife." "I love you," I said, meaning it with every fiber of my being. "I love you too. Now what do you say we go to our reception and handle whatever plan B your sister has cooked up?" I thought about the precautions I'd taken, the legal protections Patricia had helped me put in place. Amy thought she was going to destroy me tonight, but she had no idea what was coming. The college fund I controlled as trustee, the co-signed lease that required my approval for any changes, the trust fund documents that named me as executor with full discretionary powers. "You know what?" I said, linking my arm through his. "Let's do exactly that. But first, I need to make one quick stop at the bridal suite. There's something in the safe I need to get." "The trust documents?" Michael asked quietly. I nodded. Patricia said to have them ready, just in case we need to take immediate action. "My brilliant, prepared wife," he said with admiration. "Amy has no idea who she's messing with." As we headed toward the bridal suite, I could hear the cocktail hour beginning in the garden, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. Normal wedding sounds. But I could also hear Amy's voice still narrating to her phone, still promising drama to come. She wanted to put on a show, fine, but she'd forgotten one crucial thing. I'd been watching her performances my whole life. I knew all her tricks, all her manipulations. And more importantly, I knew how to write my own ending. The grand ballroom had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in ivory silk centerpieces of white orchids, and roses perfumed the air, and the band played soft jazz as 200 of our closest friends and family found their seats. It should have been perfect. Instead, I felt like I was walking into an ambush. "Ladies and gentlemen," the band leader announced, "please welcome for the first time as husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Michael Fletcher." The room erupted in applause as Michael and I entered. I'd changed into my reception dress during cocktail hour, a sleeker design that allowed me to move freely. More importantly, I'd secured the trust documents in the hotel's safe and had a long conversation with the venue's security team. They were now aware of Amy's condition and had been instructed to monitor her closely. We glided onto the dance floor for our first dance. Michael pulled me close as At Last by Etta James began to play. For 3 minutes and 20 seconds, I let myself forget everything except the feeling of my husband's arms around me. "You're tense," he murmured in my ear. "She's at the bar again," I whispered back, having spotted Amy downing what looked like her 5th champagne. "Derek's with her now." Michael spun me gracefully, using the movement to glance in their direction. "Security." "Watching. Patricia has everything ready if we need it." "Then dance with me, wife. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together." I melted into him, letting the music wash over us. Our guests swayed along, many filming with their phones, capturing what appeared to be a magical moment. None of them knew about the documents in the safe or the security guards stationed discreetly around the room. The song ended and we took our seats at the head table as the salad course was served. Everything proceeded normally through dinner. Speeches began with Michael's best man, his brother David, who told charming stories about Michael's failed attempts at cooking when they were roommates. I knew Jordyn was the one. David concluded, when she not only ate his infamous experimental pasta, but asked for seconds. That's true love, folks. The room laughed warmly. My maid of honor, Sarah, was next, talking about our friendship since freshman year of college and how she'd known Michael was special from the first time she saw us together. "Jordyn has always been the friend we all turn to in crisis," Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone. "She's the one with the plan, the solution, the shoulder to cry on. Michael, you're getting not just a wife, but a partner who will move mountains for the people she loves. Treasure her." I squeezed Michael's hand under the table, touched by Sarah's words. Then I saw Amy approaching the microphone and my heart sank. This wasn't part of the schedule. She wasn't supposed to give a speech. "Excuse me," Amy said, tapping the mic. Her words were slightly slurred but still comprehensible. "I know I'm not on the program, but as the bride's only sister, I have some things to say." The room quieted, guests settling back with polite interest. Margaret half rose from her seat at the family table, but Dad pulled her back down. I saw Patricia discreetly move closer to the stage, her phone ready. "Jordyn." Amy began turning to face me. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. "My big sister, everyone here probably thinks you're perfect. The perfect bride, the perfect daughter, the perfect everything." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Michael's hand tightened on mine. "You all see the successful lawyer, the devoted friend, the loving daughter. But family knows things others don't. Family sees behind the mask." "Amy," I said quietly, though the microphone picked it up, "please don't do this." "Don't do what? Tell the truth, share some sisterly memories on your special day." She turned back to the crowd. "Let me tell you about the real Jordyn Anderson. Sorry, Fletcher, now, though that name change won't hide who you really are." The room had gone completely silent. Even the waitstaff had frozen trays balanced in their hands. Growing up, Jordyn was the golden child. Straight A's, full scholarship to Berkeley Law Review at Stanford. Our parents' pride and joy. Meanwhile, I was just Amy, struggling Amy, disappointing Amy, never quite measuring up to perfect Jordyn. "That's not," I started, but she cut me off. "Not true. Really remember when I got rejected from Berkeley. What did you say? Maybe if you'd studied harder instead of partying. Remember when I lost my job at the restaurant? Maybe if you showed up on time, always so helpful with your criticism disguised as advice." Margaret was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. The wedding photographer had stopped taking pictures, lowering his camera with an uncomfortable expression. "But the worst part," Amy continued, her voice rising, "is how you pretend to care. How you offer help with strings attached, judgment included, free of charge. Like when you said you'd co-sign my lease, then lectured me for an hour about financial responsibility. Or when you promised to help with college applications, then rewrote all my essays because they weren't good enough." "I was trying to help you succeed," I said, unable to stay silent any longer. "No, you were trying to make me into you. But newsflash, sister, not everyone wants to be perfect. Some of us are happy being human." She pulled out her phone, waving it at the crowd. "I've been live streaming this whole wedding. Want to know why? Because people should see what happens when someone hoards family resources while their siblings suffer. This wedding cost more than most people make in 5 years. That dress she's wearing, designer. That ring, 2 carats. Meanwhile, her family members are drowning in debt. Amy, stop, Dad called out. This isn't the place. When is the place, Dad? At the family dinners, Jordyn's too busy to attend. At the holidays, she spends with Michael's family instead. Face it, we only matter when we make her look good. The supportive family in her wedding photos, the relatives to mention in her bio, props in the Jordyn show. She swayed slightly, gripping the microphone stand for balance. But here's the best part. Our grandmother Dorothy left us both money in her will, equal amounts. Guess who controlled it as trustee? Guess who decided I wasn't responsible enough to have access to my own inheritance? Gasps went through the crowd. This was family business, private matters being aired like dirty laundry. I felt exposed, humiliated, but also angry. She was twisting everything, leaving out crucial context. The trust had conditions, I said loudly. Educational purposes only until age 25 or completion of a degree. I didn't write the rules, I just enforced them. Enforce them, Amy repeated mockingly. Like a prison guard, like a dictator, never once considering that maybe I needed that money for other things, important things, life-saving things. Gambling debts are not life-saving. The words escaped before I could stop them. The room collectively inhaled. Amy's face went red, then white. There it is, she said softly, but the microphone carried every word. Perfect Jordyn sitting in judgment. Yes, I have gambling debts. Yes, I made mistakes. But you know what? At least I admit my flaws. I don't pretend to be something I'm not. She turned to address Michael. Good luck, brother-in-law. Hope you know what you signed up for. A wife who will control every penny, judge every decision, and always know better than you. That's enough. Michael stood up. Amy, you're drunk and upset. Let's get you some water and... Don't patronize me, Amy shouted. You're just like her. Perfect Michael with his perfect job and his perfect family. You two deserve each other. She stumbled off the small stage, but instead of returning to her seat, she headed for the wedding cake. It stood on its own table, 5 tiers of buttercream and sugar flowers, a small fortune in flour and eggs. Amy, no, I breathed, realizing her intention. But she was already there, grabbing the ceremonial cake knife. For one horrible moment, I thought she might do something truly dangerous. Instead, she hacked at the bottom tier, sending chunks of cake flying. This is what I think of your perfect wedding, she screamed, attacking the cake with renewed vigor. Your perfect life built on other people's misery. Security finally moved in, but Amy grabbed a champagne bottle from a nearby table and smashed it against the cake table. Champagne exploded everywhere, drenching the cake, the tablecloth, and several unfortunate guests sitting nearby. Amy, please. Margaret had reached her now, trying to pull her away. Sweetheart, stop this. But Amy was beyond reason. She grabbed handfuls of destroyed cake and threw them randomly. One hit Bethany square in the chest, leaving a streak of buttercream down her coral dress. Another splattered across the gift table. Then she turned to me, her hands full of cake and icing, her face twisted with years of resentment and pain. This is what you get for acting like you're better, she shouted and hurled the mess directly at me. Time seemed to slow. I saw the cake coming, but didn't move, didn't flinch. It hit me full in the face and chest, chocolate and vanilla mixing with champagne in a disgusting slurry that dripped onto my reception dress. The room exploded in chaos. Guests gasped and exclaimed. Someone screamed. Camera phones appeared everywhere, documenting my humiliation. But Margaret's reaction was the worst. She pulled Amy into her arms, cake and all stroking her hair. Shh, baby, it's okay. She just needs to let it out. You've been holding in so much pain. I stood there covered in my own wedding cake, watching my mother comfort my attacker. Michael was beside me immediately with napkins trying to clean the worst of it, but I barely noticed. All I could see was Margaret choosing Amy again, excusing her again, enabling her again. Let it out, I said, my voice deadly quiet. She just destroyed my wedding and you think she needs to let it out? Margaret looked at me over Amy's head, and for the first time in my life, I saw something like disappointment in her eyes. Disappointment in me. "She's your sister," she said. "She's hurting. Where's your compassion?" "Where's her accountability?" I shot back. Security had formed a circle around us, unsure whether to intervene in what was clearly a family matter. The venue coordinator looked like she might faint. Patricia was documenting everything on her phone while simultaneously typing on a second device. Derek appeared from nowhere, wrapping his tattooed arm around Amy's shoulders. "Come on, babe, you made your point. Let's get out of here." "Not yet," Amy said, pulling away from both him and Margaret. She faced me one more time, her makeup smeared her bridesmaid dress, stained with cake and champagne. "You want to know Plan B, Jordyn? Check your credit report tomorrow, check your bank accounts, check your professional reputation. You took everything from me, so I'm returning the favor." "Security," I said calmly. "Please escort Miss Anderson and her friend from the premises." "You're throwing me out," Amy laughed hysterically. "From your own sister's wedding." "You're no sister of mine," I said, the words falling like stones between us. "Not anymore." The security guards moved in professional but firm. Amy didn't resist, seemingly satisfied with the destruction she'd wrought. As they led her toward the exit, she called out one more time, "Enjoy your perfect life, Jordyn. Hope it was worth losing your family for—" The ballroom doors closed behind them with a decisive click. In the silence that followed, I surveyed the damage. The cake was destroyed. Several guests were covered in debris. The gift table was soaked with champagne. My reception dress was ruined. But I was still standing, still married, still surrounded by people who loved me without conditions or manipulation. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael said, taking the microphone with remarkable composure, "we apologize for that unexpected entertainment. If everyone could give us just a few minutes to clean up, we'll continue with the celebration. After all, it wouldn't be a Fletcher family event without at least one dramatic story for the grandkids, right?" Nervous laughter filled the room. People began moving, staff rushed to clean up, and somehow impossibly life went forward. Helen Michael's mother approached with a tablecloth she'd commandeered. "Come on, dear, let's get you cleaned up. I have a feeling you planned for contingencies, didn't you?" I nodded, grateful for her practical kindness. "I have another dress in the bridal suite." "Of course you do." She smiled warmly. "That's why you're perfect for our Michael. You think ahead." As she led me away, I caught sight of Margaret still standing where Amy had left her, looking lost and older than her years. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw the moment she realized she'd chosen wrong. But it was too late. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt with tears and apologies. I had a reception to salvage, a marriage to celebrate, and a sister to deal with legally. The cake could be replaced. My dress could be changed. But the lines had been drawn in buttercream and champagne, and there was no going back. The show, as they say, must go on, and Amy had no idea what kind of show she'd really started. I stood in the bridal suite 20 minutes later, Sarah and Jennifer working efficiently to help me into my third dress of the day, a sleek champagne number I'd originally planned to wear for our send-off. My hair had been repinned, makeup retouched, and from the neck up, you'd never know I'd just been assaulted with wedding cake. "The venue is comping the entire cake cost," Jennifer reported, scrolling through her phone. "They're also rushing a sheet cake from their backup kitchen so you can still do the cutting ceremony. And security has Amy and Derek on the banned list," Sarah added, fastening the last hook. "They won't be getting back in." A knock at the door interrupted us. Michael peered, in his expression a mix of concern and admiration. "How's my wife doing?" "Your wife is plotting," I said honestly, "and ready to return to the party." He entered fully, and I saw he'd changed his shirt and tie. Cake shrapnel had traveled farther than we'd thought. "Patricia needs 2 minutes when you're ready," he said. "She's found some interesting information." I nodded, taking a last look in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked harder than the bride from this morning. Good. That bride had been naive enough to hope her sister might behave at her wedding. This woman knew better. Patricia waited in the hallway, her phone and tablet at the ready. "Jordyn," I'm so sorry about what happened, but we need to move fast. Amy's live stream has gone viral. The hashtag CakeGateBride is already trending locally. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course it is. But here's the interesting part, Patricia continued. She streamed from multiple accounts, all linked to credit applications in your name. My forensic accountant friend took a quick look, and Amy's been building a fraud case against you for months. Credit cards, loan applications, even a car lease, all using your social security number. How much damage are we talking about? Potentially over $100,000 in fraudulent debt. But here's where she messed up. The live stream provides time-stamped evidence of her admitted involvement. She literally created evidence against herself while trying to humiliate you. Michael whistled low. She played herself. Exactly. Now about the trust fund and college account. I held up my hand. After the reception. Right now I need to go toast with whatever cake we have left and show everyone that Amy didn't win. Patricia nodded. Fair enough, but Jordyn, document everything tonight. Every threat, every interaction with your family. We'll need it all. We returned to the ballroom to find the atmosphere surprisingly upbeat. The band was playing upbeat Motown hits. The destroyed cake table had been removed and guests were actually dancing. It seemed that once the initial shock wore off, people had decided to make the best of it. There she is, someone called out, and applause rippled through the room. I waved, managing a genuine smile. These people had come to celebrate with us, and I wouldn't let Amy steal any more of our joy. The venue coordinator appeared with a simple but elegant sheet cake decorated with fresh flowers. We can do the cutting whenever you're ready, Mrs. Fletcher. Now, I decided, let's give people the moment they came for. Michael and I took our positions as the photographer captured the scene. This wasn't the elaborate cake I'd dreamed of, but somehow it felt more meaningful. We'd adapted, persevered, and found beauty in Plan B. For better or worse, Michael murmured as we positioned the knife together. We've already covered worse, I replied. Everything from here is better. We cut the cake to cheers and applause, and I noticed several guests wiping tears. There was something powerful about refusing to let destruction have the final word. As we fed each other small bites, avoiding the smashing tradition entirely, I heard a familiar voice from the crowd. That's my daughter. Dad called out, his voice thick with emotion. Nothing keeps her down. I found him in the crowd, standing alone. Bethany must have gone to change after the cake attack, and Margaret was nowhere to be seen. He raised his champagne glass to me, and I saw pride mixed with sorrow in his eyes. The rest of the reception unfolded with surprising grace. We did the parent dances with Dad holding me extra tight during our song. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have stopped her sooner. Should have gotten her help years ago instead of letting your mother enable her. It's not your fault, I said, meaning it. Amy made her choices. But we made it easier for her to make bad ones, he replied. Your mother and I failed you both in different ways. When it came time for the mother-son dance, Helen graciously offered to dance with Michael since Margaret had disappeared. Watching my new mother-in-law comfort my husband, I felt a shift in my understanding of family. Blood created relatives, but choices created family. The bouquet toss came next. I turned my back to the gathered single women, took aim, and launched my roses high. The flowers sailed over their heads and landed squarely in the arms of Patricia, who looked startled but pleased. Guess I'll need to make time for dating between cases, she called out, making everyone laugh. Michael's garter toss was less dramatic but equally fun, with his cousin catching it and immediately turning red as his girlfriend cheered. As the evening wound down, I made rounds to thank guests. Many offered words of support, sharing their own stories of difficult family members. My great-aunt Eleanor, 93, and sharp as ever, pulled me aside. I cut my brother out 40 years ago, she said bluntly. Best decision I ever made. Family isn't a license to abuse. Remember that. Table by table, I discovered that Amy's performance had actually bonded our guests in unexpected ways. They were protective of us, indignant on our behalf, and determined to give us happy memories to override the disaster. Around 11, as the band played slower songs and older guests began departing the venue, coordinator approached with an envelope. "This was left at the front desk for you," she said. "Security checked it, just papers inside." I recognized Amy's handwriting on the front, "For the bride who has everything." Michael and I found a quiet corner to open it. Inside were printouts of credit applications, loan documents, and bank statements, all in my name, none of which I'd authorized. At the bottom, a note in Amy's scrawled handwriting. "You wanted to know Plan B, it already happened. For the past 6 months, I've been living as you, taking out loans, opening accounts, building a credit history you know nothing about. The bills start coming due Monday. The collectors start calling Tuesday. By Wednesday, your perfect credit score will be trash, and your professional reputation will follow. Derek knows people who know people. Your law firm will get anonymous tips about your gambling debts and financial instability. Good luck explaining that to the partners. You took my future, so I took yours. Enjoy your honeymoon. It'll be the last piece you get for a while. Your loving sister, Amy. P.S. Mom has no idea. Don't blame her. She only ever wanted us to love each other. Too bad you were incapable of that." I set the letter down with remarkably steady hands. Michael read it again, his jaw clenching tighter with each word. "She's thought of everything," he said quietly. "No," I corrected, pulling out my phone. "She's thought of the obvious things. Patricia and I thought of everything." I showed him the email Patricia had sent during the cake fiasco. Freeze orders on all credit bureaus effective immediately. Fraud alerts with every major financial institution. A cease and desist already filed with Derek's known associates. And most importantly, a civil lawsuit prepared and ready to file first thing Monday morning. "You knew she'd do this." I suspected. Amy's predictable in her unpredictability. She always goes nuclear, but she also always telegraphs her moves. I tucked the letter into my purse. This is evidence. Her confession in writing to identity theft and conspiracy to commit fraud. So we're okay. I considered the question. Legally, we were protected. Financially, we'd weather whatever storm came. But family-wise, that damage felt irreparable. We're more than okay, I decided. We're free. No more walking on eggshells, no more enabling, no more pretending her behavior is acceptable because she's family. She drew the line. I'm just honoring it. The band announced their last song, At Last, again, and Michael pulled me onto the dance floor one more time. This time I wasn't tense. The worst had already happened, and we'd survived it. As we swayed together, I saw Dad leading Bethany in a careful dance, her new dress a testament to resilience. Jennifer danced with a groomsman, Sarah chatted with Patricia about legal careers, and our friends filled the floor with love and laughter. This wasn't the reception I'd planned, but maybe it was the one we needed. A declaration that our marriage could weather storms from the very first day. A gathering of chosen family who showed up when things got ugly. A beginning honest about its imperfections. "No regrets?" Michael asked as the song ended. I thought about Amy probably passed out somewhere with Derek celebrating her perceived victory. About Margaret hiding somewhere in her shame and grief. About the bills that would come. The calls we'd have to field, the mess we'd need to clean up. "No regrets," I confirmed. "For better or worse, right?" For better or worse, he agreed, kissing me as our guests applauded one last time. The lights came up, signaling the end of our reception. We'd made it through attempted theft, public humiliation, family betrayal, and cake assassination. If we could survive our wedding day, we could survive anything. As we prepared for our grand exit now in my third dress with rice in my hair instead of cake, I felt oddly grateful to Amy. She'd shown everyone exactly who she was, freed me from guilt about cutting her off, and provided legally admissible evidence of her crimes. Sometimes the best wedding gift is the truth, even when it comes covered in buttercream and malice. The hotel bar was nearly empty at 1 a.m, just a few wedding guests nursing nightcaps and rehashing the evening's drama. Michael and I had changed into comfortable clothes and should have been in our honeymoon suite, but adrenaline made sleep impossible. To surviving our wedding day. Michael toasted with his whiskey. I clinked my wine glass against his. To legal documentation and forward planning. Patricia appeared in the doorway, still in her reception attire, but with her lawyer face firmly in place. She'd spent the last 2 hours on her laptop, and her expression told me she'd found something significant. "You two should be celebrating," she said, sliding into our booth. "We are," I assured her. "We're celebrating that you're a brilliant attorney who works weird hours." She smiled grimly. "Well, prepare to celebrate more. I've been digging into Derek Matthews, our tattooed friend. He's got quite the record. Fraud, identity theft, extortion. Currently on probation for a check kiting scheme. And he's dating my sister," I said flatly. "More like using her. The pattern is always the same. He finds vulnerable women with family money, convinces them they're victims, then helps them get justice through illegal means. 3 of his exes have restraining orders against him." Michael leaned forward. "So Amy's not his first mark." "Not even close. But here's the interesting part. He's violating probation by associating with known criminals. Those people who know people Amy mentioned, they're under federal investigation for a multi-state fraud ring." I set down my wine glass carefully. "Are you saying Amy accidentally connected herself to organized crime?" "I'm saying she's in way over her head. This isn't just sibling rivalry gone wrong. She's provided them with your personal information, which they'll use whether she wants them to or not." The weight of it settled over me like a cold blanket. This was bigger than family drama or wedding disasters. This was potentially life-altering danger. "What do we do?" Patricia pulled out her phone. "We get ahead of it. I have a contact at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Given Derek's involvement and the interstate nature of the fraud, they'll be very interested. But Jordyn, this means Amy could face serious federal charges." I thought about my sister, probably somewhere celebrating her victory, unaware of the real consequences bearing down on her. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of, not sympathy exactly, but sadness for the waste of it all. Do it, I decided. If we don't stop this now, she'll be in even deeper tomorrow. As Patricia made calls, Michael and I sat in comfortable silence. The bar's pianist played soft jazz, and for a moment we could pretend we were just newlyweds on our wedding night. "Second thoughts," Michael asked quietly. "About marrying you never. About how I handled Amy over the years." I sighed. Maybe. Dad was right. We enabled her by cleaning up her messes, by keeping consequences at bay. Maybe if we'd let her face reality sooner. "You can't blame yourself for trying to help your sister." "Can I? Every time I co-signed something, bailed her out, kept Mom from seeing the truth I thought I was helping. But I was just delaying this inevitable explosion." Patricia returned, sliding her phone into her purse. "It's done. They'll want to interview you both tomorrow afternoon. Tonight, they're putting alerts on all your accounts and starting surveillance on Derek. If he tries to use your information, they'll know immediately." "What about Amy?" "That depends on how cooperative she is. If she testifies against Derek and the ring provides evidence, she might avoid jail time. If she doubles down and protects him..." Patricia shrugged eloquently. Just then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message was a photo Amy and Derek at what looked like a motel champagne bottles, evident her still in her ruined bridesmaid dress. The caption read, "Thanks for the wedding cash. D." "He's taunting us," Michael said, reading over my shoulder. "No," Patricia corrected, studying the image. "He's creating evidence. Look at the background. That's the Starlight Motel on Highway 99. Known drug den. He's setting her up to take the fall if things go south." My phone rang. Dad's name on the screen at 1:30 a.m. couldn't mean anything good. "Jordyn, thank God," he said when I answered. "Your mother's having a breakdown. She's at the house and Amy's missing. She won't stop crying, keeps saying she failed you both. I don't know what to do." I closed my eyes, exhaustion finally hitting. This was supposed to be my wedding night. Instead, I was managing federal investigations and family crises. "I'll come by in the morning," I promised. Could you come now? I know it's your wedding night, but she's asking for you. She wants to apologize." Michael took my hand, squeezing gently. "Whatever you need," he whispered. But I surprised myself by saying, "No, Dad, I can't come now. It's my wedding night, and I've already spent too much of it cleaning up Amy's mess. Mom made her choice at the reception when she comforted Amy instead of acknowledging what she'd done. She can live with that choice until tomorrow. Silence on the other end, then a quiet, "I understand. And Jordyn, I'm proud of you. For everything. For how you handled today, for finally setting boundaries. You deserved better from all of us." After I hung up, Patricia gathered her things. "Get some rest, you two. Tomorrow's going to be intense. The feds will want everything, documents, recordings, the live stream footage. It's going to be a long day." "Patricia," I called as she reached the door. "Thank you for everything. Send me your bill." "Absolutely not." She turned back with a smile. "Consider it a wedding gift. Besides, this is the most interesting case I've had all year. Identity theft with a side of wedding cake assault. I couldn't make this up if I tried." After she left, Michael and I made our way to the honeymoon suite. Rose petals covered the bed, champagne chilled in a bucket, and chocolate-covered strawberries waited on a silver tray. All the romantic touches felt surreal after the day's chaos. "Not exactly how we pictured tonight," Michael said, pulling me into his arms. "No, I agreed, but somehow perfect anyway. We know we can handle anything together." As we got ready for bed, washing off the last traces of makeup and hairspray, I thought about the synchronized events planned for 7:30 a.m. The trust fund transfer reversals, the lease termination, the fraud alerts. Amy thought she'd won with her plan B, but she had no idea what was coming. "Do you think she'll ever understand?" Michael asked, reading my mind as he often did. "That you're not punishing her, but protecting yourself?" "No," I said honestly. "She'll always see herself as the victim and me as the villain. But I can't control her narrative anymore. I can only control my response to it." We climbed into the ridiculously luxurious bed, ignoring the rose petals that immediately stuck to everything. Somewhere in the city, Amy was celebrating her perceived victory with a criminal who saw her as expendable. Somewhere else, my mother was crying over the daughters she'd lost through her own choices. And here I was, married to a man who stood by me through cake attacks and federal investigations. "I love you, Mrs. Fletcher," Michael murmured against my hair. "I love you too, Mr. Fletcher. Thank you for not running when my family turned out to be insane." His laugh rumbled through his chest. "Are you kidding? My family's already planning to dine out on this story for years. My uncle posted about it, calling it better than reality TV." Despite everything, I found myself laughing too, because what else could you do when your wedding turned into a crime scene and your honeymoon suite became a war room? "Think we'll ever have a normal family gathering?" I asked. "God, I hope not," Michael said. "Normal is overrated. Besides, we're Fletchers now. We handle the chaos and come out stronger." As sleep finally pulled me under, I set my phone alarm for 7 a.m. Patricia would handle the legal aspects, the FBI would handle the criminal elements, but the family portion was mine alone to manage. In 5.5 hours, Amy would learn that actions had consequences. The trust fund she'd mentioned so bitterly would revert to my sole control. The lease she needed would be terminated. The financial safety nets she'd taken for granted would be cut. It wasn't cruel. It was necessary. Sometimes love meant letting someone hit rock bottom so they could finally choose to climb up. And if she chose to dig deeper instead, well, that was a choice too. But tonight, on what remained of my wedding night, I chose to focus on the man beside me, the friends who'd supported us, and the future we were building together. Amy had tried to destroy our beginning, but instead, she'd only made it stronger. Tomorrow would bring FBI interviews, family confrontations, and financial cleanups. But tonight I was just a bride who'd survived her wedding day lying next to a groom who'd proven he could weather any storm. And despite the cake in my hair and the chaos in my family, I'd never been happier. 4:17 a.m. I gave up pretending to sleep and slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Michael. The honeymoon suite's floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city lights, and I stood there in the hotel robe planning the synchronized demolition of my sister's safety nets. My laptop sat on the desk where I'd left it, and I powered it up quietly. Patricia had sent several emails overnight. The FBI wanted to meet at 2 p.m. Local police were investigating the motel where Derek and Amy were staying. 3 major credit card companies had confirmed fraudulent applications. But it was the last email that made my stomach drop. A forward from Patricia's forensic accountant friend found another dozen accounts, total exposure approaching $250,000. This is professional-level identity theft. $250,000. $250,000 in fraudulent debt that Amy and Derek had tried to saddle me with. The number was so staggering I had to read it 3 times. I opened my banking app, grateful for the paranoia that had made me use different passwords for everything. All my actual accounts were intact, protected by 2-factor authentication Amy couldn't bypass. But the relief was temporary. If even one of those fraudulent accounts had gone through... "Can't sleep," Michael's voice came from behind me. "Sorry, didn't mean to wake you." He wrapped his arms around me from behind, reading the screen over my shoulder. When he saw the number, he whistled low. "They really went all in, didn't they? Derek's a professional. Amy just thought she was using him, but he was using her the whole time." I leaned back against his chest. She gave him everything he needed to destroy me, and he would have, with or without her permission. "What time do the transfers reverse?" 7:30. I've got everything queued up. I showed him the scheduled transactions. Trust fund reversion, lease termination, college fund freeze. All legal, all within my rights as trustee and co-signer. "You're not having second thoughts?" "No, but I am documenting everything." I gestured to the notebook where I'd been writing timestamps and events. Every decision, every action, every reason. So when this eventually goes to court, no one can say I acted impulsively or vindictively. Michael poured us coffee from the sweets machine and we sat together watching the sunrise. By 6:30, my phone was buzzing with messages. Dad asking if I was awake, Sarah checking if we needed anything, even a text from Emma, my cousin, who'd first warned me about seeing Amy at the casino. "Heard about last night. Stay strong. Some family, you choose some, you just survive." At 7:15, I opened the trust management portal. The Dorothy Anderson Trust established by our grandmother 5 years before her death, with clear stipulations. Educational expenses only until age 25 or completion of a degree program. Amy was 24, no degree, and had violated every term by using the funds for gambling. "You sure about this?" Michael asked one more time. "She announced on livestream that I was hoarding family resources," I replied. "Called me out for controlling her inheritance. Well, now she'll understand what actual control looks like." 7:30 a.m. I hit execute on the first transaction. $30,000 transferred from Amy's education sub-account back to the main trust. The system immediately sent an automated notification to her email. Next, the lease termination. As co-signer, I had the right to withdraw with 30 days' notice. But given the evidence of fraud, the property management company had agreed to immediate termination with cause. Finally, the college fund Margaret had been paying into thinking Amy was still enrolled. I didn't empty it, that wasn't mine to take, but I did freeze it, requiring both Margaret's and my signatures for any withdrawals. My phone exploded within minutes. Amy calling, declined. Amy texting, "What did you do?" Amy calling again, declined. Derek calling from Amy's phone, blocked. Margaret calling. I almost answered that one, then remembered her choosing Amy's side last night. Declined. More texts from Amy escalating in rage and panic. "You can't do this. That's my money. I'll sue you. Mom, make her stop. Answer your phone. This is illegal. I hate you." Then finally, the one I'd been expecting. "Fine, you win. I'll tell you everything about Derek. Just give me my money back." I screenshot every message, forwarding them to Patricia. Evidence of her acknowledgement that she'd been working with Derek, that she knew what she'd done was wrong. How long before she figures out the FBI is involved? Michael wondered. My phone rang with a blocked number. This time I answered. "You think you're so smart." Amy's voice was different, harder, scarier. "But you just made a big mistake." "Amy, shut up. You took everything from me, everything. So now I'm going to take everything from you. Derek has friends, Jordyn. The kind of friends who don't care about FBI investigations or court orders. The kind who know where you live, where you work, where your precious Michael works. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. You have 24 hours to reverse those transfers and publicly apologize for humiliating me at your reception. Or Derek's friends start making life very difficult for you. Amy, listen to yourself. You're threatening violence over money that was never yours. Money you were stealing to pay gambling debts. It was mine. She was screaming now. Grandma left it to both of us. You just decided you knew better like always. Perfect Jordyn making decisions for everyone else. The trust had conditions. I don't care about conditions. I care about survival. Do you know what they'll do to me if I can't pay? Do you even care? I care enough to stop you from digging deeper. Amy, Derek is using you. He's setting you up to take the fall for his crimes. The FBI... She hung up. I stared at my phone, then carefully saved the recording. Yes, I'd been recording. Patricia's advice to document everything included phone calls. We should call the FBI now, Michael said. That was a credible threat. It was a scared girl lashing out. I corrected, though my hands were shaking. But you're right, we need to report it. As I dialed Patricia's emergency number, another call came through, this time from the property management company. Mrs. Fletcher, this is David from Riverside Properties. I'm at your sister's apartment with the sheriff. You need to know what we found. My blood ran cold. Is Amy okay? She's not here, but the apartment... Ma'am, it's being used as some kind of fraud headquarters. There are credit cards in dozens of names, fake IDs, printers, blank checks. We're waiting for the police detective, but as the co-signer, I thought you should know. Don't touch anything, I said automatically. I'll have my attorney call you immediately. I hung up and looked at Michael. It's worse than we thought. They were running their operation out of the apartment I co-signed for. His face went pale. That makes you potentially liable. Unless I can prove I had no knowledge and took immediate action upon discovery. I was already texting Patricia, which is exactly what we're doing. My phone rang again, Dad. This time I answered. Jordyn, your mother's inconsolable. Amy called her hysterical, saying you'd stolen her inheritance and made her homeless. What's going on? What's going on is that Amy and her boyfriend have committed $250,000 in fraud using my identity. They were running a criminal operation out of the apartment I stupidly co-signed for. And instead of being grateful, I'm not pressing charges yet, she's threatening me. Silence. Then $250,000, that we know of. There might be more. Oh my God, his voice broke. Jordyn, I'm so sorry. We should have seen this coming. Should have gotten her help years ago instead of enabling her. Yeah, well, that stops now. I've frozen every account I have legal control over. The FBI is taking over the criminal investigation. And Dad, she just threatened to have people hurt me and Michael if I don't give her money. She what? You heard me. Your younger daughter just crossed the line from family disappointment to actual criminal. So you and Mom have a choice to make. You can either help her face reality and maybe avoid prison, or you can keep enabling her straight into a federal penitentiary. Jordyn. I have to go, Dad. The FBI needs my statement. But do me a favor. Ask Mom if she still thinks Amy just needed to let it out. Because from where I'm sitting, what Amy needs is a lawyer and a plea deal. I hung up before he could respond. It was harsh, but I was done softening blows for people who'd never done the same for me. Michael pulled me into his arms. You okay? I will be. We need to pack. I don't think we're making our honeymoon flight. He kissed my forehead. Bora Bora will still be there next month. Right now, we protect ourselves. As we began gathering our things, my phone buzzed with one more message, this time from a number I didn't recognize. You don't know me, but I know Derek. Get somewhere safe. He's desperate and dangerous when cornered. This isn't a threat. It's a warning from someone who learned the hard way. He'll hurt anyone to save himself. I showed Michael the message. Without a word, he began packing faster. The war I'd never wanted had officially begun, but at least now everyone knew which side they were on. Amy had made her choice. Derek had shown his true colors, and I'd finally stopped pretending that love meant accepting abuse. 7:30 a.m. had come and gone. The transfers were complete. The safety nets were cut. Now all that remained was to see who would save themselves and who would hit the ground. By 8:45 a.m., Michael and I had relocated to a suite at a different hotel across town registered under his cousin's name. Patricia met us there with 2 FBI agents who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else on a Sunday morning. Agent Martinez, a compact woman with sharp eyes, spread photos across the coffee table. "Is this your sister?" The surveillance images showed Amy at various ATMs over the past 6 months, each time with Derek hovering nearby. In some, she was clearly using multiple cards. In others, she was photographing checks before depositing them. "Yes, that's Amy." "And you had no knowledge of these activities?" "None. I found out yesterday when she attempted to use my credit card information." Agent Thompson Martinez's older partner pulled out a tablet. "We've been tracking Derek Matthews for 18 months. Your sister is the 15th woman he's targeted using the same pattern. Build trust claim financial expertise, gradually take over their finances, then drain them and their families dry." 15 women. Michael couldn't hide his shock. "That we know of. Most are too embarrassed to come forward. Your wedding live stream actually helped us. Your sister broadcasting the crime in real time, Derek appearing on camera, both of them admitting to targeting you. It's the best evidence we've gotten." I laughed bitterly. So Amy's attempt to humiliate me actually built the case against her. Essentially, yes. But here's our problem. Martinez leaned forward. "Derek always positions the women to take the fall. Everything's in their names using their signatures, their IP addresses. He stays technically clean while they face the federal charges." "You're saying Amy could go to prison while Derek walks?" "Unless she cooperates. We need her to testify about his methods, provide evidence of his coercion. But from what we've observed, she's completely under his influence. Classic manipulation tactics. He's probably convinced her that you're the enemy, and he's her only ally." My phone now, on a new number Patricia had arranged, buzzed with a forwarded message from my old number. "Margaret. Jordyn, I know you're angry, but Amy is suicidal. She says you've destroyed her life. Please, I'm begging you as your mother, undo whatever you've done. I can't lose my baby girl, so, Mom." I showed it to the agents. Martinez's expression didn't change. Textbook. He's coaching her to use emotional manipulation. Suicide threats, family pressure, anything to make you reverse the financial cutoffs. "Is she actually suicidal?" I asked, hating that I had to question it. "In our experience, unlikely. Derek's victims are too useful to him alive. But we'll request a wellness check at their last known location." Thompson pulled up more files on his tablet. "Here's what's going to happen in the next few hours. The banks will start calling about the fraudulent accounts. Creditors will begin collection attempts. Derek will realize the free money is cut off. That's when things typically escalate. Escalate how? He'll either abandon her immediately, leaving her to face the consequences alone, or double down with increasingly desperate schemes. Based on his pattern, I'm betting on abandonment. He's got warrants in 3 states. He won't stick around for a federal investigation." Patricia, who'd been taking notes, spoke up. "My client needs protection. Amy threatened violence, mentioned Derek's associates would target Jordyn and her husband." Martinez nodded. "We can arrange surveillance on your home and workplaces. But honestly, Derek doesn't have the connections he claims. He's a small-time con artist who preys on vulnerable women. The dangerous associates are usually other bottom feeders who scatter at the first sign of law enforcement." "Usually," Michael pressed. "There's always a chance he's desperate enough to try something stupid, which is why we're here." Thompson stood gathering the photos. "We need you to maintain normal routines as much as possible. Go to work, live your lives, but stay alert. Don't meet with Amy alone, don't respond to threats, and document everything." "What about my parents?" I asked. "My mother is clearly being manipulated too." "We'll speak with them after we leave here. They need to understand that helping Amy evade prosecution makes them accessories. Usually that's enough to secure cooperation." After the agents left, Patricia, Michael, and I sat in exhausted silence. Room service coffee grew cold as we processed the morning's revelations. 15 women, Michael finally said. "He's done this 15 times. And Amy was supposed to be number 16, I added. Except she picked the wrong target, someone with a lawyer friend and the sense to document everything. Patricia pulled out her laptop. "Speaking of documentation, the calls are starting to come in. 17 credit inquiries flagged as fraudulent. 4 approved cards already maxed out. 2 personal loans totaling $30,000. And this is just what the automated systems are catching." My phone rang with another forwarded call, this time Dad. "Patricia Chen speaking." Patricia answered, having advised me not to take direct calls. I could hear Dad's voice tinny through the speaker. "I need to speak with my daughter. This is an emergency." "Mr. Anderson, I'm Jordyn's attorney. Any communication needs to go through me right now." "Attorney, for God's sake, this is family." "This is a federal criminal investigation, Mr. Anderson. Your daughter Amy has committed extensive identity theft and fraud. She's made threats of violence. This is no longer a family matter." Silence. Then, "How bad is it?" Patricia looked at me. I nodded. "Current estimate is over $250,000 in fraudulent debt. Amy and her associate Derek Matthews were running a sophisticated fraud operation. The FBI is now involved. Your daughter Jordyn has done nothing wrong except trust her sister with a co-signed lease that was turned into a criminal headquarters." "Oh God," his voice was barely a whisper. "Margaret won't believe it. She thinks Jordyn is being vindictive about the wedding." "Mr. Anderson, federal agents will be contacting you today. I strongly advise you to cooperate fully and encourage Amy to turn herself in. With cooperation, she might avoid significant jail time. Without it..." Patricia let the sentence hang. "I understand. Can I at least tell Jordyn I love her, that I'm sorry?" Patricia looked at me again. I shook my head, tears finally threatening to fall. I couldn't handle his emotions on top of my own right now. "She knows, Mr. Anderson, but right now she needs to protect herself. When Amy is ready to face reality and get help, we can discuss family reconciliation. Until then, please respect her boundaries." After she hung up, I finally let myself cry. Michael held me as months of stress and years of dysfunction poured out. The strong facade I'd maintained through cake attacks and fraud discoveries finally cracked. "She's my little sister," I sobbed. "I taught her to ride a bike. I helped her with homework. How did we get here?" "Hey," Michael said softly, tilting my face up. "You didn't do this. Amy made choices. Your parents enabled those choices. You just finally stopped playing along." "But what if Mom's right? What if she does hurt herself?" Patricia sat beside us, uncharacteristically gentle. "Jordyn, I've handled dozens of family fraud cases. The suicide threats are almost always manipulation. But even if Amy is genuinely struggling, giving in to her demands won't help. It just reinforces that threats work." My phone buzzed with another forwarded message, this time a photo from an unknown number. It showed our house taken from across the street. The caption read, "Nice place. Be a shame if something happened to it." Michael was calling 911 before I even processed what I was seeing. Patricia was already forwarding to the FBI agents. Within minutes, Martinez called back. "We've dispatched units to your house. Pack what you need for a few days. You're not going home until we locate Derek and Amy." "This is insane," I said, staring at the photo. "This is my sister. My sister is threatening my home." "No," Martinez corrected firmly. "Derek Matthews is threatening your home using your sister as cover. She might not even know he sent that photo. This is what he does, escalate situations to keep victims off balance." Another call came through, this time from the property management company that owned Amy's apartment. Mrs. Fletcher. The police are done processing the scene. We found approximately $50,000 in merchandise hidden in the unit. Electronics, jewelry, designer goods, all with tags from different stores. We believe they were using stolen credit cards to buy items for resale. $50,000 in stolen goods in the apartment I'd co-signed for. Additionally, the manager continued, we found evidence of multiple other tenants being targeted, mail theft primarily. Several residents reported missing credit card statements and bank documents. Are you saying they were running this operation against your other tenants too? It appears so. The police will be contacting affected residents, but as the co-signer, you could face civil liability unless you can demonstrate lack of knowledge. After I hung up, Patricia was already typing. I'm filing immediate documentation with every relevant agency showing when you discovered the fraud and what actions you took. Timestamps are crucial here. My phone rang again. This time it was Amy's number, but Agent Martinez's voice answered. Jordyn, we've located them. Patrol units found them at a motel off Interstate 80. Derek ran, but we have Amy in custody. She's not doing well. Extremely intoxicated, hostile, claiming you set her up. Is she okay? Despite everything I needed to know. Physically, yes. Mentally, she needs help. We're taking her for psychiatric evaluation before booking. She'll be appointed a public defender, but if your family wants to hire someone... I looked at Michael, then Patricia, the same sister who'd destroyed my wedding, stolen my identity, and threatened my home, who'd chosen a criminal over family and greed over love. That's up to my parents, I said finally. I can't be involved in her defense. Understood. We'll be in touch about your statement. And Mrs. Fletcher, you did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you potentially saved your sister's life. Derek's last two victims didn't fare as well. What happened to them? One overdosed on pills he provided. The other is in witness protection after testifying against him. Your sister was heading down one of those paths until you cut off the money. After Martinez hung up, the three of us sat in stunned silence. It was 9:30 a.m. on what should have been the first day of our honeymoon. Instead, we were in a hotel room under false names, while FBI agents arrested my sister and searched for her criminal boyfriend. The trust fund transfer saved her, Michael said quietly. If you'd let her keep accessing money, Derek would have used her until she had nothing left, then discarded her like the others. Or worse, Patricia added. These guys don't leave witnesses when things go bad. Your cruelty in cutting her off probably kept her alive. I thought about Amy in custody, drunk and angry, blaming me for her situation. About my mother probably getting the call right now that her younger daughter had been arrested. About the 15 other women who'd fallen for Derek's manipulation, their lives destroyed by trusting the wrong person. What happens now? I asked. Patricia pulled up her files. Now we clean up the mess. Every fraudulent account contested, every stolen item documented, every threat recorded. It'll take months to fully resolve, but your credit will be restored, your liability minimized. Amy will face charges, but with cooperation, probably get probation and mandated treatment. And Derek, with any luck, federal prison for a very long time. My phone buzzed one more time, a text from my old number forwarded by the service. Jordyn, this is Mom. Amy's been arrested. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed our family. I will never forgive you for this. You are no longer my daughter. I stared at the words, waiting for them to hurt. Instead, I felt only a strange lightness. The mother who'd enabled Amy's destruction, who'd chosen the abuser over the abused, who'd watched my wedding cake assault and thought Amy needed to let it out that Mother had just set me free. You okay? Michael asked, reading the message. You know what I am. I deleted the message. I have you. I have friends who support me. I have a career Amy couldn't steal and a future she couldn't destroy. If losing a toxic family is the price of keeping those things, I'll pay it. Patricia smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all morning. That might be the healthiest thing I've heard you say. Now let's order room service and plan how to salvage your honeymoon. The FBI can handle the criminals. Your job is to start your marriage." As Michael called room service and Patricia typed away on her laptop, I stood at the window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Amy was facing the consequences of her choices. Margaret was learning that enabling had a price, and Derek was running from a reckoning 15 women deserved to see. 7:30 a.m. had come and gone. The revelations were complete. The family I'd tried so hard to save had chosen to destroy itself rather than change. But in losing them, I'd found something better: the freedom to build a life without dysfunction, manipulation, or abuse. The freedom to love without conditions and trust without fear. The sun climbed higher in the sky, warming the room. It was a new day, the first of my married life, and despite everything, I was exactly where I needed to be. 3 days after my wedding, I sat in my childhood home's living room, the same space where Amy and I had played as children, where we'd opened Christmas presents and blown out birthday candles. Now it felt like a crime scene heavy with accusations and broken trust. Dad sat in his old recliner, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 72 hours. Margaret occupied the couch tissues, clutched in her hand, refusing to make eye contact with me. Between us, spread across the coffee table, lay the evidence. Patricia had compiled bank statements, credit reports, printed screenshots of Amy's live stream, and a stack of fraudulent applications an inch thick. $287,000. Dad said, his voice hollow. The final tally is $287,000 in attempted fraud. "Thomas, please," Margaret whispered. "Do we have to do this?" "Yes, Margaret, we do." His voice gained strength. "Our younger daughter is sitting in county jail on federal charges. Our older daughter is in protective custody because of threats made against her life. So yes, we have to do this." I hadn't wanted this meeting. Michael and Patricia had both advised against it. But when Dad called saying he had information from Amy's public defender that I needed to hear, I couldn't stay away. Michael waited in the car, ready to leave if things escalated. "The lawyer says Amy's looking at 5 to 7 years if convicted on all counts," Dad continued. "Identity theft fraud, conspiracy making terroristic threats. Our baby girl, Margaret. How did we get here?" "We got here because Jordyn turned her in." Margaret finally looked at me, her eyes red with fury. Her own sister. She could have handled this privately, but no, she had to involve the FBI. "I didn't involve anyone," I said evenly. "Amy involved them when she connected with a career criminal, when she threatened my life, when she used my apartment as a fraud headquarters. You took everything from her." Margaret stood pacing to the window, her college fund, her home, her future. I took back what was mine to protect, and thank God I did. I pulled out the newest piece of evidence, the one Dad had called about. "Tell her what Amy's lawyer found Dad." He lifted a printout with shaking hands. Derek Matthews wasn't just running fraud. He was recording everything, every intimate moment with Amy. He has videos, photos, all saved to cloud storage. Margaret's face went white. "What?" "He records all his victims." I explained, my voice gentler now. "Uses it as blackmail if they try to leave or testify against him. Amy thought she was his girlfriend. She was just his mark." 15 other women, Dad added, all thinking they were special, all ending up destroyed in debt, some of them. He couldn't finish. 2 suicide attempts I supplied, 1 successful. That's who Amy chose over family. Margaret sank back onto the couch, the fight draining out of her. She said she loved him, said he understood her in ways we never did. He understood how to manipulate her, how to use her anger at me to his advantage. I leaned forward. "Mom, I know you want to blame me. It's easier than admitting we all failed Amy by never making her face consequences. But I'm not the villain here. You could have helped her," Margaret insisted, but with less venom. "You have money connections." "I have $300,000 in student loans and a mortgage. The wedding was paid for with savings and Michael's family's help. This idea that I'm wealthy is Amy's fantasy, one you bought into. But the trust fund has $30,000 earmarked for education, not gambling debts, not living expenses for criminals, education, which Amy hasn't pursued in 2 years. Dad set down another document. There's more. The public defender found evidence that Derek was planning to disappear soon. He had fake passports, ready tickets to Thailand. He was going to drain every account and leave Amy holding the bag. "Oh God," Margaret whispered. "Your intervention saved her life," Dad said, looking at me. "I know it doesn't feel like it. I know Margaret and I haven't handled this well. But you saved her from whatever he was planning." "Tell that to Amy," I said bitterly. "According to her public defender, she still thinks Derek loves her, still thinks I ruined their chance at happiness." "She's confused," Margaret said weakly, "traumatized. When she gets out, when she gets help, I'll have a restraining order waiting." The words hung in the air like a blade. "I'm done, Mom. This isn't confusion or trauma talking. This is who Amy chose to become." "She's your sister. She threatened to have me killed. She destroyed my wedding. She tried to steal my identity and ruin my career. Being related doesn't give her a free pass to destroy my life." Dad pulled out his phone, scrolling to something. "I need you both to hear this. It's a voicemail Amy left me from jail." He hit play. Amy's voice filled the room, slurred but venomous. "Dad, I hope you're happy. Your precious Jordyn won. She gets to play victim while I rot in here. But this isn't over. When I get out, I'm going to finish what Derek started. She thinks she's safe with her lawyer and her FBI friends. She has no idea what I'm capable of. Tell Mom I love her. Tell Jordyn to watch her back." The recording ended. Margaret had gone pale, one hand pressed to her mouth. "That's from yesterday," Dad said quietly. "After 3 days to sober up and think, she's still making threats." "She's hurt," Margaret said, but even she didn't sound convinced. "She's dangerous," I corrected. "And until you both accept that you're enabling her path to destruction." A knock at the door interrupted us. Dad answered it, returning with Agent Martinez and another FBI agent. "I apologize for interrupting," Martinez said, "but there's been a development. Derek Matthews was apprehended this morning trying to cross into Mexico." Relief flooded through me. "So he's in custody?" "He is, and he's trying to make a deal by providing information about his operation." She paused. "Including recordings that suggest Amy wasn't just a victim. She actively participated in targeting other women after you cut her off financially." The room went silent. Even Margaret couldn't find words to defend that. Martinez continued, "In the past 3 days, Derek and Amy targeted 2 other women, sisters of Amy's high school classmates, used the same playbook sympathy about family rejection promises to help them get justice against relatives who'd wronged them. Amy made the initial contact while Derek worked the financial angle. She became him," I said, understanding flooding through me. "When I cut off her money, she didn't leave. She joined his operation." The victims were lucky. Their families were suspicious and contacted authorities before any significant damage. But it establishes a pattern of willing participation that will be hard for Amy's defense to overcome. After the agents left, we sat in stunned silence. The daughter and sister we'd known was gone, replaced by someone willing to destroy other families the way hers had been destroyed. "I need to show you something," Dad said finally. He disappeared upstairs, returning with a box I recognized. Amy's childhood keepsakes, things Margaret had saved over the years. "I went through these last night," he said, opening the box, "looking for signs we missed, and I found this." He pulled out a diary one Amy had kept in high school. Pages were marked with sticky notes. "Read the marked entries," he said, handing it to me. I read, my heart sinking with each passage. Entry after entry detailed lies Amy had told, money she'd stolen from our parents' kids at school she'd manipulated. But what struck me most were her comments about me. "Jordyn thinks she's so perfect. One day I'll show her what it feels like to lose everything. Stole $50 from Mom's purse. If anyone notices, I'll say I saw Jordyn take it. Jordyn got into Stanford. Everyone's so proud. I hope she fails and has to come crawling back. The entries went back years. This wasn't new behavior triggered by Derek. This was who Amy had always been. We knew she struggled, Dad said quietly, but we told ourselves it was normal sibling rivalry, teenage angst. We made excuses because facing the truth was too hard. Margaret took the diary with trembling hands, reading entries her husband had marked. With each page, her face crumpled more. "We failed her," she whispered. "We failed both of you. You needed protection from her, and she needed help we refused to see she required." The therapist we sent her to in 10th grade, Dad added she recommended intensive treatment, said Amy showed signs of antisocial personality disorder. We got a second opinion, instead found someone who said she was just acting out. "I remember," I said. "You doctor shopped until someone said what you wanted to hear." "We were scared," Margaret admitted. "Scared of labels, of stigma, of admitting our daughter might be—" She couldn't finish. "Dangerous," I supplied. "The word you're looking for is dangerous." My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Everything okay, ready to leave when you are." I stood suddenly exhausted. "I have to go. My husband is waiting and we have meetings with contractors. We're installing a security system." "Jordyn, wait." Margaret stood too, reaching for me tentatively. "I owe you an apology. Not just for the wedding, but for years of choosing to believe Amy's lies over your truth, for making you responsible for her well-being while never protecting yours. I waited, not making it easier for her. I'm sorry." She continued, tears flowing freely. "I'm sorry I comforted her after she attacked you. I'm sorry I blamed you for her choices. I'm sorry I failed as your mother." "I appreciate that," I said carefully, "but apologies don't undo damage. Trust has to be rebuilt, and honestly, I don't know if I have the energy for that right now." "I understand," she whispered. Dad walked me to the door. "The public defender wants to know if you'll consider writing a victim impact statement that includes mercy recommendations. Says it could help Amy get treatment instead of just prison time." I thought about the diary entries, the threats the other women she'd tried to victimize. Then I thought about the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who I'd taught to tie her shoes and ride a bike. "I'll think about it," I said finally. "But Dad, whatever I decide will be about justice, not family loyalty. I'm done prioritizing Amy's needs over my safety." "I wouldn't expect anything else," he said. "You've grown into the kind of person Amy never could be, someone who sets boundaries and keeps them. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Despite everything we did wrong, you turned out right." As I walked to the car where Michael waited, I felt the weight of 28 years of dysfunction lifting. The house behind me held memories both beautiful and terrible, but it no longer held power over me. Amy had chosen her path. My parents were finally facing their failures, and I was free to build a life without the chaos that had defined my family for so long. "How did it go?" Michael asked as I slid into the passenger seat. "They're starting to see the truth," I said. "Whether they can handle it remains to be seen." "And you?" I considered the question. "I'm okay. Sad for what we lost, relieved by what I'm leaving behind, hopeful for what's ahead." He took my hand as we drove away from my childhood home. "That sounds pretty healthy to me." "Yeah." I agreed, watching the familiar streets fade in the rearview mirror. For the first time in my life, I think it actually is. The federal courthouse downtown was a monument to justice, all marble and mahogany, designed to make everyone who entered feel the weight of the law. I sat in a witness waiting room, Patricia beside me, preparing to testify before the grand jury about my sister's crimes. It had been 2 weeks since the wedding, 2 weeks of FBI interviews, credit disputes, and security assessments, 2 weeks of learning just how deep Amy and Derek's operation had gone. Today, I would help determine if my sister faced federal prosecution. "Remember," Patricia coached, "just answer what they ask. Don't volunteer information, don't speculate about motives. Facts only. I know. I'd been over this dozens of times. It just feels surreal, testifying against Amy. You're not testifying against her. You're testifying about crimes committed using your identity. There's a difference. The door opened and Agent Martinez appeared. They're ready for you, Mrs. Fletcher. The grand jury room was smaller than I'd expected, with 23 citizens seated in tiered rows, like a tiny amphitheater. The prosecutor assistant U.S. Attorney James Walsh stood at a podium. No judge, no defense attorney, just citizens deciding if enough evidence existed for trial. Please state your name for the record. Walsh began after I was sworn in. Jordyn Marie Fletcher, formerly Anderson. Mrs. Fletcher, can you tell us about your relationship with Amy Anderson? She's my younger sister, 4 years younger. And were you close? I considered the question. We were once, as children. In recent years, the relationship became strained due to her behavioral issues and financial problems. Walsh pulled up a display showing bank statements. Can you identify these documents? Those are applications for credit cards in my name that I didn't authorize. For the next hour, I walked through evidence. Every fraudulent application, every forged signature, every threatening message. The grand jurors took notes, some looking sympathetic, others stone-faced. Mrs. Fletcher. Walsh asked, did you ever give your sister permission to use your personal information for financial purposes? Never. I specifically refused when she asked for money, which is what triggered this escalation. Can you describe the escalation? I took a breath. She destroyed my wedding reception, physically assaulted me with cake-threatened violence against me and my husband, and sent photographs of our home with threatening messages. Walsh played the live stream video. I watched myself get attacked with cake again, heard Amy's vitriolic speech, saw my mother comfort my attacker. Several jurors shifted uncomfortably. After this incident, what actions did you take? I revoked her access to trust funds I managed, terminated a lease I'd co-signed, and filed fraud alerts with credit agencies. I also hired security and relocated temporarily due to threats. Did the threats continue? Yes. Walsh played the jail recording, Amy's voice filling the room with promises of revenge. One juror, an elderly woman, looked horrified. Another, a young man, shook his head in disgust. Mrs. Fletcher, what has been the impact of these crimes on your life? This was the hard part. Beyond the financial damage, which exceeds $250,000 in fraudulent debt, I've had to install security systems, change all my account numbers, and take time off work. My credit score dropped 200 points before we could freeze everything. My professional reputation at my law firm was questioned when creditors began calling. My marriage started with my husband and I in protective custody instead of on our honeymoon. And personally, I've lost my sister, my relationship with my mother is severely damaged, and I live in fear of what Amy might do when she's released. Walsh showed more evidence, the apartment full of stolen goods, the other victims. Amy had contacted Derek's confession, implicating her as a willing partner. Based on all this evidence, Mrs. Fletcher, do you believe your sister willingly participated in these crimes? Patricia had warned me about this question. I had to be honest. Initially, I believed she was manipulated by Derek Matthews. The evidence now shows she became an active participant, even recruiting other victims. So yes, I believe she willingly participated. After 90 minutes, I was dismissed. Patricia and I retreated to a cafe nearby to wait. Within an hour, Walsh called the grand jury had indicted Amy on all counts. 27 federal charges, including identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy, and making terroristic threats. She's looking at serious time, Walsh said. Even with a plea deal, minimum 5 years, without one possibly 15 to 20. I felt no satisfaction, only a deep sadness. My little sister would spend her 20s and possibly 30s in federal prison. That evening, I met with Amy's public defender, Sarah Kim, at Patricia's office. She was young, earnest, and clearly overwhelmed. Your sister is difficult. Kim began diplomatically. She refuses to accept any plea deal that involves testifying against Derek Matthews. She insists you set them both up. Even with his confession, Patricia asked. She claims you paid him to lie, says this is all an elaborate scheme because you were jealous of her relationship. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Jealous of a relationship with a career criminal who recorded their intimate moments for blackmail? I've shown her the evidence. She has explanations for everything. You planted the items in her apartment. You created the fake accounts yourself to frame her. The cake incident was performance art to expose your cruelty. Kim rubbed her temples. I've defended many clients, Mrs. Fletcher. Your sister is the first who seems to genuinely believe her own lies. What are her options? If she continues refusing to cooperate, trial, conviction, maximum sentences, the evidence is overwhelming. But there's another issue. Kim pulled out medical documents. The psychiatric evaluation revealed some concerning findings. I read the report terms jumping out: antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic features, lack of remorse, inability to accept responsibility. The psychiatrist believes she needs intensive treatment, not just incarceration, Kim explained. There's a federal medical facility that could provide both, but it requires her to acknowledge she needs help, which she won't do. Correct. She's also refused to see your parents. Says they betrayed her by not immediately bailing her out. They couldn't afford bail, I said. It was set at $500,000 given the flight risk. I explained that. She said they should have mortgaged their house. Kim paused. Mrs. Fletcher, I need to ask, would you consider speaking with her? Sometimes victims can break through when others can't. I looked at Patricia, who shook her head slightly, but something in me, maybe the last vestige of big sister protectiveness, considered it. What would be the goal? To get her to accept reality, to take a plea deal that includes treatment, to save her from spending decades in prison out of stubborn pride. She threatened to kill me, I reminded her. In a secure facility through glass with guards present, Kim assured me. But I understand if you refuse. You've been through enough. Michael was adamantly against it when I discussed it that night. She's manipulative, Jordyn. She'll use any meeting to hurt you more. I know, but what if this is the last chance to get through to her, to save her from herself? You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. He was right, but the next morning I found myself agreeing to one meeting with strict conditions. Patricia would be present. The conversation would be recorded. Any threats or manipulation would end it immediately. 2 days later, I sat in the visiting room at the Federal Detention Center watching guards escort Amy in. She'd lost weight, her hair hung limp, and orange didn't suit her, but her eyes still blazed with rage. She sat down, picking up the phone on her side of the glass. Come to offer you a chance, I said evenly. Take the plea deal, get treatment, serve 5 to 7 instead of 20. I'm not taking any deal. Derek's lawyer says we can beat this. Derek already confessed and implicated you. He's testifying against you to reduce his own sentence. Her face contorted. You're lying. Patricia slid documents against the glass. Derek's signed confession clearly stating Amy was a willing participant who'd suggested targeting me. Amy read her face, cycling through emotions. Disbelief hurt rage. He loves me. He used you like he used 15 other women. You weren't special to him, Amy. You were convenient. Shut up. He recorded your intimate moments. He was planning to leave the country without you. He let you take all the risk while he stayed technically clean. Is that love? I said, shut up. She slammed her fist against the glass. Guards stepped closer. Amy, I said softly, you're 24. You could be out by 30 with treatment. You could have a life, but only if you stop protecting the man who destroyed you. You destroyed me. Tears streaming down her face now. You had everything and wouldn't share. You judged me, controlled me, made me feel worthless. I tried to help you. You turned that help into hatred. Your help always came with conditions. with lectures, with reminders of how perfect you were and how pathetic I was. There was truth in that, and it stung. You're right. I wasn't a perfect sister. I was judgmental sometimes, controlling sometimes. But Amy, that doesn't justify destroying my wedding, stealing my identity, threatening my life. You stole my life first. How by existing, by succeeding, by not enabling your gambling addiction. She went quiet, staring at me with those eyes that looked so much like our grandmother's. For a moment, I saw the little girl she'd been before the anger and entitlement consumed her. I hate you, she said finally, but it sounded more like grief than rage. I've always hated you, since we were kids. You made everything look so easy while I struggled with everything. That wasn't my fault. No, but you never let me forget it. Every achievement, every success, every time Mom and Dad praised you, I felt smaller, and you knew it. You had to know it. I knew you were unhappy. I didn't know the depth of your resentment until recently. Liar. You knew. You just didn't care. Patricia touched my arm, a warning. This was becoming unproductive, but I had one more thing to try. Amy, I'm going to write a victim impact statement. I can ask for leniency based on your mental health needs, or I can detail every single thing you've done and ask for maximum punishment. The choice is yours. Take the plea deal with treatment or face trial where everything comes out. She laughed high and unhinged. Blackmail. That's your move. How perfect. Jordyn the hero still manipulating from her high horse. It's not blackmail, it's reality. You committed serious crimes. There are consequences. I'm offering you a path to minimize those consequences. I don't want your help. Then you'll get my honesty. Every threat, every lie, every moment of terror you put me through will be in that statement. She leaned forward, phone pressed tight to her ear. Do it. Tell them everything. Tell them how their perfect victim drove her sister to desperation. Tell them how you hoarded family resources while I suffered. Tell them the truth. I will tell the truth, including the diary entries Dad found, the ones from high school where you detailed plans to frame me for theft, where you admitted to stealing and lying for years before Derek ever showed up. Her face went pale. You read my diary. Dad did looking for answers. The patterns were all there, Amy. This isn't new behavior caused by recent stress. This is who you've always been. Get out. Her voice was deadly quiet. Get out and never come back. This was your last chance. Get out! She screamed, slamming the phone down. Guards immediately moved in, restraining her as she fought and cursed. Patricia and I left quickly, my hands shaking. In the parking lot, I broke down completely. You tried, Patricia said, holding me as I sobbed. No one can say you didn't try. That night, I wrote my victim impact statement. I detailed the crimes, the threats, the destruction of my wedding. But I also included context about Amy's mental health needs and the recommendation for treatment alongside incarceration. It was the last act of sisterly love I could offer, honesty tempered with mercy. 3 weeks later, Amy stood for sentencing. She'd refused all plea deals, gone to trial, been convicted on all counts. The judge, reviewing my statement among others, sentenced her to 12 years in federal prison with mandatory mental health treatment. As they led her away, she turned to look at me one last time. No words, just a look that held years of resentment and pain. Then she was gone, and I was left to build a life in the aftermath of her destruction. The little sister I'd loved was gone, replaced by a stranger consumed with hatred. But I was free now, free to live without fear, without manipulation, without the toxic bond that had nearly destroyed us both. Justice had been served, but it tasted like ashes and felt like grief. 6 months after the trial, Margaret sat across from me at a quiet coffee shop, her hands wrapped around a cup she hadn't touched. The woman before me looked nothing like the mother who defended Amy at my wedding. Her hair had gone gray at the temples, lines etched deeper around her eyes, and she'd lost the defensive rigidity that had defined her for years. I've been seeing a therapist, she began without preamble. Twice a week since Amy's sentencing. Your father said he'd leave if I didn't face what we'd done. I sipped my own coffee waiting. Patricia had advised against this meeting, but something in Margaret's voice when she'd called had made me agree. Not hope exactly, but a recognition of genuine pain that matched my own. Dr. Henley specializes in family dynamics and enabling behaviors, Margaret continued. She's helped me understand, God, Jordyn, I've been blind for so long. What changed? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Margaret pulled out a worn notebook, pages filled with her handwriting. I started documenting like you always did, writing down memories, patterns, incidents I'd forgotten or explained away. Do you remember Amy's 7th birthday party? The one where she pushed Katie Morrison into the pool because Katie's present wasn't expensive enough. You remember? Of course you do. Margaret's smile was rueful. I told everyone Katie fell, made excuses. Even when Katie's mother never let her come over again, I blamed her for overreacting. That was the pattern. I agreed. Amy acted out, you covered it up. Everyone else was wrong. Dr. Henley calls it protective enabling. I thought I was shielding Amy from a world that didn't understand her. Instead, I was shielding her from consequences that might have helped her develop empathy and accountability. She flipped through pages pointing to entries. Age 9. Amy stole from the church collection plate. I replaced the money quietly. Age 12. She cyberbullied 3 classmates until one attempted suicide. I got her transferred to a different school rather than address it. Age 15. She was caught shoplifting. I paid off the store to avoid charges. I didn't know about the shoplifting, I admitted, because I hid it from everyone, including your father, just like I hid the credit card I gave her at 16 that she maxed out in a month, or the times she stole from my purse and I pretended not to notice, or when she vandalized her ex-boyfriend's car and I paid for repairs anonymously. The litany continued, each revelation another piece of the puzzle. Margaret had documented 20 years of incidents, cover-ups, and missed opportunities for intervention. But the worst part, she said, voice breaking, is how I sacrificed you in the process. Every time I took Amy's side, every time I made you apologize for her behavior, every time I asked you to be the bigger person, I was telling you that your feelings didn't matter, that your safety didn't matter, that keeping Amy happy was more important than protecting you. Why? The question I'd wanted to ask for years came out as barely a whisper. Margaret closed her notebook, meeting my eyes directly. Because Amy was difficult from birth, colicky, demanding, never satisfied. You were easy, independent, responsible, self-soothing. I could leave you with a book and know you'd be fine. Amy required constant attention, constant management, constant damage control. So you gave it to her. I did. And somewhere along the way, I confused giving her what she wanted with loving her. I thought if I just loved her enough, supported her enough, protected her enough, she'd eventually be okay. But Dr. Henley says I was actually preventing her from developing crucial life skills. By never letting her fail, I ensured she never learned to succeed. And I was collateral damage. You were more than that. You were... God, this is hard to admit. You were my proof that I wasn't a complete failure as a mother. Look, I could point to you and say, see, I raised this successful, accomplished daughter, so I couldn't be that bad. The honesty was brutal but necessary. Years of resentment I'd carried began to shift, not disappearing, but transforming into something more like understanding. I need to show you something, Margaret said, pulling out her tablet. She opened a video file. This is from the prison's security footage. Amy's therapist shared it with her permission, hoping it might help our family healing. On screen, Amy sat in what looked like a group therapy session. She was speaking her voice different than I'd ever heard it. Vulnerable. Scared. I destroyed everything, Amy was saying. My relationship with my sister, my parents' marriage, my future. And for what? Because I couldn't stand that Jordyn was successful. Because I felt entitled to things I hadn't earned. Derek saw that ugliness in me and exploited it, but the ugliness was already there. Another patient asked her something inaudible. No, Amy responded. That's the thing. Jordyn tried to help so many times. She offered to tutor me in high school. She helped me with job applications. She co-signed that lease even though I'd already burned her before. I hated her for being able to help. Hated that she had her life together while mine was chaos. It was easier to blame her than look at myself. The therapist's voice came through. And what do you see when you look at yourself now? Amy was quiet for a long moment. Someone who chose destruction over growth. Someone who had a family that loved her and threw it away for a con artist who saw me as a mark. Someone who needs to be here getting help, facing consequences. Margaret stopped the video. That was from last week. It's the first time she's taken any responsibility. Is she manipulating the therapist? I had to ask. The therapist doesn't think so. She says Amy's had a breakdown of her defensive mechanisms. Without Derek reinforcing her victim narrative, without me enabling her, without you to blame, she's had to confront herself. It's been brutal. We sat in silence processing. The coffee shop buzzed around us with normal life people working on laptops, friends chatting a world where sisters didn't destroy each other's weddings and mothers didn't enable criminals. I've written you so many letters, Margaret said suddenly, trying to find the words to apologize. But how do you apologize for a lifetime of wrong choices? How do you make amends for damage that can't be undone? You start by doing what you're doing, I said. Getting help, taking responsibility, not asking me to forgive and forget for the sake of family harmony. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I haven't earned it. I wanted you to know that I see it now. All of it. The favoritism, the enabling, the way I made you responsible for Amy's emotions while never protecting yours. Do you remember, I asked, when Amy broke my clarinet before the state competition, you made me tell everyone I dropped it, made me apologize to her for being upset. I remember. You'd practiced for months. It was your junior year, scouts were coming. And I made it about Amy's feelings because she felt excluded from your music success. That was when I stopped trusting you, I admitted. Not when you took her side at my wedding, not during the trial, when I was 17 and realized my mother would rather protect my sister's ego than my dreams. Margaret wiped away tears. I know. I see it in every family photo after that. The distance in your eyes. The way you started sharing, less visiting, less needing less. You protected yourself the only way you could by pulling away. And you let me. Actually, you seemed relieved. I was. God help me, I was relieved when you went to college across the state. When you got your own apartment instead of moving home. When you built a life that didn't include daily Amy drama because it meant I could focus on her without feeling guilty about neglecting you. Except you were neglecting me. Just because I could take care of myself didn't mean I didn't need a mother. I know that now. Dr. Henley says I parentified you, made you the stable one so I could pour everything into the unstable one. It wasn't fair, it wasn't right, and it wasn't love, though I told myself it was. I thought about all the milestones Margaret had missed because Amy had a crisis. My college graduation, Amy had a breakup. My law school acceptance, Amy needed bail money. My engagement dinner, Amy was in the hospital after a bar fight she'd started. Is Dad doing therapy too? I asked. Individual and couples. We're trying to salvage what's left of our marriage. He's angry at me, at himself, at the years of dysfunction we normalized. But we're both committed to doing better, being better. Even if it's too late for our daughters, maybe we can break the pattern for ourselves. It's not too late for us, I said carefully. But it can't go back to how it was. I won't pretend the past didn't happen or minimize my pain to make you comfortable. If we rebuild anything, it has to be honest. That's more than I dared hope for, Margaret whispered. We talked for another hour, not about Amy or the trial or the trauma, but about small things. The book club Margaret had joined, the cooking classes she was taking, the way she was learning to fill her time with her own interests instead of managing Amy's chaos. As we prepared to leave, Margaret pulled out one more thing, a photo album I recognized. I found this while cleaning out Amy's room, she said. I thought you might want it." I opened it to find pictures from our childhood, before the theft and lies and resentment. Photos of Amy on my lap, both of us grinning, teaching her to ride a bike, reading her bedtime stories. The big sister I'd been before I learned protecting myself meant pulling away. "We weren't always broken," Margaret said softly. "That doesn't excuse anything, but maybe it means something. That there was love there once, even if we buried it under dysfunction." I tucked the album into my bag. "Thank you. And Mom, keep doing the work. With or without me in your life, keep doing the work. You deserve to know who you are without the enabling, without the crisis management, without the constant Amy drama." "She gets out in 11.5 years, Margaret said. "I want to be healthier by then, strong enough to have boundaries, wise enough not to fall back into old patterns." That's a good goal. We hugged awkwardly in the parking lot, two women trying to bridge a canyon carved by years of wrong choices. It wasn't reconciliation exactly, but it was a start. A painful, necessary awakening to truths that had been hidden under enabling and resentment for too long. As I drove home to Michael, I thought about the video of Amy in therapy, taking responsibility for the first time in her life. It didn't undo the damage or erase the crimes, but maybe it meant she could build something better in the ruins of who she'd been. And maybe, just maybe the rest of us could too. The conference room at the Hilton was packed with over 300 attendees, all victims or family members of identity theft. I stood at the podium looking out at faces that mirrored my own journey. Shock betrayal, the particular grief that comes when family is the perpetrator. "My name is Jordyn Fletcher." I began, and my sister stole my identity. Not just my financial identity, though that was devastating enough. She tried to steal my sense of safety, my trust in family, my belief that love could overcome dysfunction. Today I want to talk about surviving family fraud and rebuilding when the foundation of family itself has been shattered. It had been 2 years since my wedding, 18 months since Amy's sentencing. The nonprofit I'd founded, Family Fraud Survivors, had grown from a support group in my living room to a national organization. We provided legal resources, emotional support, and most importantly, validation for people society expected to forgive and forget because it's family. When I first discovered the extent of my sister's crimes, I continued, well-meaning people said things like, "She's sick, not evil," or "Family is forever," or my personal favorite, "You'll regret cutting her off." But what they didn't understand was that keeping her in my life was killing me financially, emotionally, spiritually. Heads nodded throughout the room. These people knew. They'd heard the same platitudes, faced the same pressure to prioritize family bonds over personal safety. After my presentation, I facilitated a panel with 3 other survivors. Marcus, whose mother had opened 17 credit cards in his name. Elena, whose brother had sold her house while she was deployed overseas. David, whose father had drained his children's college funds for gambling debts. The hardest part, Elena said, was that everyone expected me to protect him. "He's old, he's my father. How could I send him to prison? But he stole my children's futures. Where was his protection of us?" "My family split completely," Marcus added. "Half sided with my mother saying addiction is a disease. The other half supported me pressing charges. Holidays are complicated now." The audience questions were painful in their familiarity. How do you handle family events when half the family thinks you're cruel? What if they get out of prison and contact you? How do you explain to your kids why grandma is in jail? I answered as best I could, sharing my own strategies, the security systems that made me feel safe, the therapy that helped me process guilt, the boundaries I maintained even when they hurt. Remember, I concluded, protecting yourself isn't betrayal. Refusing to enable criminal behavior isn't cruelty. And choosing your own well-being over family dysfunction isn't selfish, it's necessary. After the conference, Michael met me for dinner at our favorite restaurant. He'd been my rock through everything, never wavering, even when the stress invaded our newlywed years. "Patricia called," he said after we'd ordered. "The legislation passed committee. It's moving to the full state Senate next month." I felt tears prick my eyes. The Family Fraud Protection Act we'd been lobbying for would make it easier for victims to freeze their credit when family members were suspects, require banks to verify identities more thoroughly, and provide legal protections for victims who press charges against relatives. 2 years of work on, I breathed. Finally. Your testimony made the difference, he said, taking my hand, putting a face to the statistics, making them understand this isn't about vindictive family members, but desperate victims. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Saw the news coverage of your conference. So proud. Mom sends her love. Margaret and I had rebuilt slowly, carefully. Weekly coffee, then monthly dinners, now regular family interactions, but always with boundaries. Always with the understanding that our relationship had been forever altered by her choices and mine. Speaking of family, Michael said, his eyes twinkling, I have something to tell you. Oh, we're having a baby. I stared at him, confused. I think I'd remember. Sorry, let me rephrase. My sister Michelle is pregnant. We're going to be an aunt and uncle. Joy flooded through me. Michelle had been trying for years, multiple rounds of IVF heartbreaking losses. Oh my God, how far along? 4 months. She wanted to wait until she was sure. Due in February. I immediately started planning baby showers, nursery help, all the ways I could support her. Then a thought struck me, dampening my joy. The baby will be 8 when Amy gets out, I said quietly. Michael squeezed my hand. We'll handle that when it comes. Security measures, legal protections, whatever we need. But Jordyn, we can't let Amy's shadow darken every joy. He was right. I'd worked too hard in therapy to let Amy control my emotions from prison. But the fear was real, that she'd emerge unchanged, still bent on revenge targeting the next generation. Have you heard from her? Michael asked gently. Not directly. Her therapist sends quarterly updates through Margaret. Slow progress, lots of resistance, but some breakthrough moments. She's earned her GED, started taking college courses. Small steps. That's something. Maybe. Or maybe she's just learned to play the system better. I can't know, and honestly, I can't care. My focus has to be on building our life, not monitoring hers. We shifted to happier topics, the new house we'd bought with actual security features, built in his promotion at work, the vacation we were planning for our anniversary. Normal couple things that felt extraordinary after the chaos of our beginning. Walking home, we passed the venue where we'd had our reception. It had been renovated, the garden where family photos turned to warfare, now featuring a modern sculpture installation. Ever regret not having the wedding we planned? Michael asked. No, I said honestly. That disaster taught us who we really are, who our real family is, who stands with us when things get ugly. A perfect wedding would have been beautiful, but it wouldn't have shown us those truths so clearly. At home, I found a package on our doorstep. No return address, but I recognized Margaret's handwriting. Inside was a letter and a small box. Jordyn. I was cleaning out the attic and found this. Your grandmother Dorothy gave it to me when you were born, said to save it for your first child. Given everything that's happened, I understand if you don't want family heirlooms. But Grandma loved you fiercely and would be proud of the woman you've become. The woman who stands up for herself, helps others, and refuses to let dysfunction define her future. Love, Mom. The box contained a delicate gold locket, Dorothy's initials engraved on the back. Inside was a tiny photo of her as a young woman and space for another photo. I thought about the trust fund she'd created, how Amy had seen it as control, while I'd seen it as protection. Dorothy had known her granddaughters well enough to put safeguards in place. It's beautiful, Michael said, fastening it around my neck. She was a survivor, too, I said, remembering stories of Dorothy leaving an abusive first marriage in the 1960s when divorce was scandalous. Maybe that's why she saw through Amy's charm, recognized the patterns. My phone rang, Patricia. Jordyn, I'm sorry to call so late, but there's news. Derek Matthews was killed in prison. Fight with another inmate over contraband. I sank onto the couch, processing. The man who'd orchestrated so much destruction, who'd turned my sister from difficult to dangerous, was gone. Does Amy know? Her lawyer was just notified. She'll be told tomorrow with counseling support. This could go either way, breakthrough or breakdown. After I hung up, Michael and I sat in silence. Derek's death didn't undo his crimes or heal his victims, but it did close a chapter. Amy would have to face her choices without the excuse of his manipulation. "Are you okay?" Michael asked. "I think so. It's strange I don't feel happy or sad. Just relieved that he can't hurt anyone else, that Amy can't hold on to fantasies of reuniting with him, that maybe now she'll have to fully face what she did. And if she doesn't, then she doesn't. But at least the puppet master is gone." That night, I updated my victim impact statement for the parole board, something I'd have to do every few years. I wrote about the nonprofit, the legislation, the hundreds of families we'd helped. I wrote about choosing hope over bitterness, growth over stagnation. But I also reaffirmed my boundaries. Amy was not welcome in my life until she demonstrated sustained change and genuine accountability. 2 years after my wedding disaster, I was building something beautiful from the wreckage. A marriage tested by fire and proven strong. A nonprofit that turned my pain into purpose. A relationship with my mother rebuilt on honesty rather than enabling. A life that Amy had tried to steal but only succeeded in clarifying. The foundation was different than I'd planned, harder won, more carefully constructed, built on truth rather than hope. But it was solid, unshakable. And most importantly, it was mine. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing contracts at my desk. The caller ID showed the Federal Correctional Institution where Amy was housed, and my finger hovered over the decline button. But something made me answer. "Mrs. Fletcher, this is Dr. Sarah Winters, Amy Anderson's psychiatrist. I'm calling with your sister's permission regarding a matter of some urgency." My stomach tightened. "Is she okay?" "Physically, yes, but she's made a significant breakthrough in treatment, and there's a time-sensitive situation I need to discuss with you. Would it be possible to meet in person? I can come to you." 2 days later, I sat across from Dr. Winters in a private room at the nonprofit's office. She was younger than I'd expected, with kind eyes and an intensity that suggested she took her work seriously. "First, I want to say how much your victim impact statements have helped Amy's treatment," she began. "Not the parts about the crimes, but your acknowledgement of the family dysfunction. It gave us a framework to explore how enabling and resentment shaped her choices." "I tried to be fair," I said carefully. "You were, more than fair, which brings me to why I'm here." Dr. Winters pulled out a file. 3 months ago, Amy was approached by federal investigators about a financial fraud ring operating across multiple prisons. Derek Matthews was part of it before his death. They're using inmates' families as unwitting mules for money laundering and identity theft. My blood went cold. "Are you saying Amy's involved?" "The opposite. She recognized the recruitment tactics. They were identical to what Derek used on her. Instead of participating, she reported it. She's been working undercover for the FBI for the past 12 weeks, documenting the operation." I stared at her, unable to process what I was hearing. Amy, my sister Amy, working with law enforcement. Dr. Winters smiled slightly. "I know it seems impossible given her history, but she said something that stuck with me. I know exactly how these people think because I used to be one of them. Maybe I can stop them from creating more victims like Jordyn." She handed me a letter, Amy's handwriting neater than I remembered. "Jordyn, I don't expect you to read this, but Dr. Winters said I should write it anyway. I've been working with the FBI to expose a fraud ring that targets inmates' families. It's run by people like Derek predators who look for vulnerable women with relatives they can exploit. I'm not doing this for reduced time or special treatment. My sentence is fair. I earned every day of it. I'm doing it because for the first time in my life, I understand what it feels like to protect instead of destroy." They showed me letters from victims, women whose children stole their identities, parents whose savings were drained, siblings torn apart. I saw myself in every perpetrator and you in every victim. and I finally understood what I put you through. I know this doesn't undo anything. I know you'll probably never trust me again. But maybe I can stop someone else's sister from making my mistakes. Maybe I can save another family from what I did to ours. I don't need you to forgive me. I haven't forgiven myself, but I wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. Not for parole boards or early release, but because I finally understand that being better is its own reward. Your sister, if I can still call myself that, Amy. I set the letter down with shaking hands. Is this real, not another manipulation? The FBI thinks so. Her intelligence has led to 17 arrests and prevented an estimated $3 million in attempted fraud. She's testified via video link in 2 federal cases, despite threats from other inmates. She's risking her safety to do this. Why are you telling me this? Dr. Winters leaned forward. Because the investigation is wrapping up. The ringleaders know Amy was the informant. She's being transferred to protective custody, but she'll need to testify in person at the main trial. The prosecutors want character witnesses to speak to her transformation to help the jury understand why they should believe a convicted fraudster. You want me to testify that Amy's changed based on one letter, and your word. I want you to consider meeting with her first, in a secure facility with full protective measures. See for yourself if the change is real, then decide. I thought about the years of manipulation, the wedding disaster, the threats against my life. Then I thought about the nonprofit, all the families we'd helped, the possibility that Amy might genuinely be trying to make amends. I need to think about it, I said finally. Of course. But Mrs. Fletcher. In my 20 years of treating personality disorders, I've rarely seen such a dramatic shift. It began when Derek died and she couldn't blame him anymore. The delusions crumbled. The victim narrative collapsed. What was left was a young woman who finally saw herself clearly and was horrified by the view. That evening, I showed Michael the letter. We discussed it over dinner, weighing risks against possibilities. She could be playing the long game, he said, setting up for parole hearings. True, but what if she's not? What if this is real? Then it changes things. Not everything the past is still the past, but maybe it means the future doesn't have to be defined by it. I called Patricia for legal advice, Margaret for emotional perspective, and my therapist for professional guidance. The consensus was cautious optimism with firm boundaries. A week later, I found myself back in a federal facility waiting in a conference room. When Amy entered, I barely recognized her. Not because of physical changes, though she'd aged considerably, but something in her eyes was different. The angry defensiveness was gone, replaced by something I'd never seen before: genuine remorse. "Hi," she said quietly, sitting down. No guards this time, just a camera recording everything. "Hi. Thank you for coming. I know I don't deserve it." "Tell me about the fraud ring," I said, skipping pleasantries. For the next hour, Amy detailed the operation, how inmates were recruited to give up family information, how the ringleaders used emotional manipulation identical to Derek's playbook, how she'd recognized the tactics and made a choice. "They offered me $20,000 in my commissary account just for my parents' information," she said. "Old Amy would have taken it without thinking, but I kept seeing your face at the wedding covered in cake, trying so hard to maintain dignity while I destroyed everything. I couldn't do that to another person." "So you became an informant?" "After Derek died, I had what Dr. Winters calls a narcissistic collapse. Everything I'd blamed on others, all the justifications and excuses just crumbled. I saw myself clearly for the first time, and I wanted to die from the shame." "But you didn't." "No, Dr. Winters said the shame meant I was finally developing empathy, that it was a good sign even though it felt like being skinned alive. She said I could use it to build something better." "And you chose to help the FBI?" Amy nodded. "It was terrifying. The people running this ring are actually dangerous, not like Derek who just pretended to be. But every time I wanted to quit, I'd think about their victims. People like you who didn't deserve to have their lives destroyed by family they trusted. Why should I believe this isn't another con? Amy looked me directly in the eyes. Because I'm not asking you for anything. I'm not seeking forgiveness or money or help. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did to you. And I'm trying to balance the scales, even though I know they'll never be even. The prosecutors want me to be a character witness. I told them not to contact you. That was Dr. Winter's idea. I don't want anything from you, Jordyn. You've given me enough, your silence, your distance, your decision not to push for maximum sentencing. That was more grace than I deserved. We talked for another hour about the GED she'd earned, the accounting courses she was taking, the victim restitution she'd never be able to fully pay but was trying to address, about the other inmates she'd mentored away from fraud schemes, about the therapy sessions where she'd finally faced the ugly truths of who she'd been. I know I'll never be part of your life again, she said as our time ran out. I accepted that when I destroyed your wedding, but I wanted to tell you in person that you were right to cut me off, right to press charges, right to protect yourself. You saved both our lives that day, even if I was too sick to see it. As the guards prepared to take her back, Amy stood and did something unexpected. She bowed her head slightly, a gesture of genuine respect. Be happy, Jordyn. Be free. Be everything I tried to stop you from being, and know that somewhere your little sister is finally growing up and wishing you well. I left the facility in emotional turmoil. The sister I'd known was gone, replaced by someone taking accountability and trying to make amends. It didn't erase the past or rebuild trust, but it offered something I'd never expected: closure. 2 weeks later, I submitted my character witness statement. Not effusive praise or blanket forgiveness, but honest acknowledgement of the changes I'd observed. Amy's work with the FBI had protected dozens of families from fraud. That meant something even from someone who'd perpetrated those same crimes. The trial made national news, a massive fraud ring exposed by an unlikely informant. Amy testified for 3 days, detailing everything, despite visible threats from the defendants. Her testimony helped convict all 17 ringleaders. The judge at the trial commended her courage, but noted it didn't erase her own crimes. Amy responded that she wasn't seeking personal benefit, just trying to prevent others from following her path. Afterward, the lead prosecutor told me Amy's cooperation had been the most extensive and effective they'd ever seen from an inmate informant. Your sister saved a lot of people from financial ruin, he said. I thought you should know that. That night, I updated my victim impact statement for Amy's file one more time. I wrote about redemption being possible, but trust being earned over years, not moments. About protecting future victims being admirable, but not erasing past harm. About hope for her continued growth while maintaining my boundaries. Amy still had 8 years left on her sentence. 8 years to prove this transformation was real. 8 years to build a life centered on accountability rather than blame. And maybe when those 8 years were done, we could meet as strangers and see who we'd both become. Not sisters anymore, that relationship had been irreparably broken, but perhaps two women who'd survived the worst of each other and chosen to grow beyond it. For now, that possibility was enough. 5 years after my wedding disaster, I stood in my dining room setting the table for Thanksgiving dinner. The china-gleamed autumn centerpieces adorned every surface, and the smell of turkey filled the air. But this wasn't the tense, dysfunctional gathering of my childhood. This was something we'd built from the ashes, imperfect but honest, careful but real. Michael carved the turkey while his sister Michelle managed her twin toddlers with practiced chaos. His parents Robert and Helen chatted with my father Thomas about their recent golf game. Patricia, now part of our chosen family, helped Margaret bring dishes from the kitchen. Sarah and Jennifer, my constants, through everything poured wine and kept conversation flowing. The doorbell rang and conversation paused. We all knew who it would be, the delivery service we'd arranged. Michael retrieved the package, a small box addressed to me with no return label. Inside, wrapped carefully, was my grandmother Dorothy's jewelry box, the one Amy had stolen years ago, along with everything inside. A note was tucked beneath it. Found through estate sale listing. Purchased with legal earnings from prison job. Thought it should come home. A. Margaret's hand flew to her mouth. Dad cleared his throat roughly. I lifted the jewelry box, remembering Dorothy wearing these pieces, remembering Amy taking them, remembering the long journey to this moment. "Should we set a place?" Michelle asked gently, not knowing the full history but sensing the weight of the moment. "No," I said, setting the box on the sideboard, "but we can acknowledge her." Thomas raised his glass. "To family, the ones we're born to and the ones we choose. To growth, even when it's painful. To accountability and redemption. And to those working to earn their way back wherever they are." We toasted the clink of glasses, a benediction over our rebuilt life. Amy was 3 years into her cooperation with federal authorities, her intelligence preventing millions in fraud. She'd testified in 12 trials despite increasing danger to herself. The prosecutor's office sent updates she was using her accounting education to teach financial literacy to other inmates, trying to break cycles before they started. After dinner, as the twins napped and football played in the background, Margaret and I stepped onto the back porch. 5 years of therapy and careful boundary setting had brought us here, not to where we'd been, but somewhere newer and more honest. "I visited her last week," Margaret said quietly. "I know you prefer not to hear details, but I need to tell you something." She started a program for inmates who were victims of financial abuse before becoming perpetrators themselves, teaching them to recognize manipulation tactics, build financial independence, protect themselves from future derricks. Margaret pulled out her phone, showing me a photo of Amy standing before a classroom of women teaching from a whiteboard covered in financial terms. "That's significant," I acknowledged. "The warden says it's the most successful rehabilitation program they've running. Amy understands the victim-to-perpetrator pipeline because she lived it. She's helping break it for others." I thought about my own nonprofit now operating in 12 states, the legislation we'd passed protecting family fraud victims, the thousands of people we'd helped reclaim their financial lives. Amy and I were fighting the same battle from opposite sides of prison walls. "She asks about you," Margaret continued. "Not for information, just if you're happy, if you're safe." I tell her yes to both. "Thank you." She also wanted me to tell you something, that she understands your silence is a gift, that every day you don't oppose her parole hearings or victim services work is an act of grace she's grateful for. We stood quietly watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of redemption and regret. Inside, laughter erupted as one of the twins woke up and immediately charmed everyone in sight. "Do you think you'll ever—" Margaret couldn't finish the question. "I don't know," I answered honestly. 8 years ago, she tried to destroy everything I'd built. 5 years ago, she threatened my life. Today, she's saving other families from similar destruction. That's a remarkable journey, but it doesn't erase the damage. The therapist says holding boundaries isn't punishment, it's self-preservation. Your therapist is right. I smiled slightly. Look how far you've come, Mom. From enabling to respecting boundaries. That's its own remarkable journey. Later, as guests departed with leftover pie and warm hugs, Michael and I cleaned up together. The domestic rhythm soothed us a far cry from our chaotic beginning. Patricia mentioned the Times wants to do a feature on the nonprofit, he said, drying dishes. 5-year anniversary piece. Including the Amy angle, you'd have to decide how much to share. I considered it. Our story had helped so many families recognize toxic patterns and seek help. Maybe sharing the next chapter, the possibility of redemption without reconciliation, could help even more. I'll think about it, I decided. That night, I sat in my home office, the one with the excellent security system and reinforced locks, and opened the jewelry box Amy had returned. Each piece was there cleaned and polished. At the bottom was another note I'd initially missed. Jordyn, I know returning stolen items doesn't undo the theft. But Dr. Winters says making amends means action, not words. So I'm trying to return everything I took, starting with what can actually be given back. The trust, the safety, the sisterhood, Those I destroyed forever. But Grandma's jewelry belongs with you. You're the granddaughter she'd be proud of. Amy. P.S. The robbery charges from the pawnshop break-in were dropped when I proved ownership and paid damages. Your credit report should be clear of that incident now. I hadn't even known about pawnshop charges. Another mess she'd created and quietly cleaned up. It didn't change the big picture, but it showed consistent effort. My laptop chimed with a video message from Patricia. She was at her own family gathering, slightly wine-flushed and happy. Just wanted to say thanks for being the friend who turned trauma into purpose. Love you, lady. Hope your Thanksgiving was drama-free. Drama-free. Such a simple concept that had once seemed impossible. Now it was our normal, chosen family, honest relationships, boundaries, respected love without conditions or manipulation. The doorbell rang again. Michael called out, "I've got it." He returned with an envelope thick legal-sized requiring signature. Inside were documents from Amy's victim restitution fund. She'd managed to pay back $30,000 through prison wages, educational tutoring, and selling her story rights to a documentary about fraud rehabilitation. It would never match the full amount of damage, but the consistent payments showed commitment. There was also a sealed letter marked, "Only if you want to read it." I set it aside, not ready yet. Maybe not ever, and that was okay. 5 years post-wedding, our life looked nothing like we'd planned. Instead of the perfect album photos, we had security cameras. Instead of normal family gatherings, we had carefully orchestrated visits with verified guest lists. Instead of sisterly bonds, we had a chasm bridged only by legal documents and third-party updates. But we also had truth, growth, purpose born from pain, a marriage tested by fire and proven unbreakable, chosen family who showed up when biology failed, work that mattered, lives saved because we'd refused to let our story end in destruction. "Come to bed," Michael called. "Tomorrow's a busy day." Tomorrow, the nonprofit's holiday fundraiser, my testimony before the state senate about new fraud protection laws, normal life built on abnormal foundations. I locked the jewelry box in our safe alongside the letter I might read someday, or might not. The choice was mine, just like the choice to build something beautiful from something broken. As I turned off the lights, I thought about Amy in her cell, maybe looking at the same moon through barred windows. Both of us so far from who we'd been transformed by choices and consequences. Neither of us the sister we'd once been to each other, but perhaps both becoming the women we were meant to be. The empty chair at our Thanksgiving table hadn't been for Amy, not yet, maybe not ever. It was for the possibility of redemption, the hope of change, the reminder that even the worst storms eventually pass. And in their wake, if we're brave enough, we can build something stronger than what came before. I climbed into bed beside Michael, grateful for the peaceful end to a drama-free holiday. Outside, the world spun on with its usual chaos, but inside our carefully built life there was safety, love, hope. And that was more than enough. Would you protect your family even if it meant losing them? Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to let go. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. If this story resonated with you, please consider sharing your own thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? Your stories inspire and help others know they're not alone. If you found value in this story, please hit the like button and subscribe for more tales of resilience, redemption, and the complicated truth about family. Share this with someone who might need to hear that protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Until next time, remember, real love includes accountability. True family respects boundaries, and sometimes the hardest choices lead to the greatest freedom. Wishing you all the strength to build the life you deserve, with or without those who refuse to honor your worth. Be safe, be strong, and never apologize for protecting your peace.